going to call to order the regular city council meeting of August 26, 2024. Mr. Clerk, the roll, please.
Mayor Bixon.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvia.
Here.
Council members Hauser,
Here.
Jones,
Here.
King,
Here.
Sage,
Here.
and Trent.
Here.
Thank you. Will you please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for coming on this hot night in August, but it is still August. First, we're going to go to public comments, scheduled non-kid. So first, we have a presentation from Nick Gatos on the state of the nature preserve, Dinosaur Hill. Nick, welcome, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today on behalf of Dinosaur Hill Nature Preserve. You received our annual report, which provides a detailed overview of our activities over the past year. And I just wanted to highlight some key points from the report and share what lies ahead as we approach a significant milestone. At Dinosaur Hill, our success is deeply intertwined.
Should your report be up there?
I can put it up if you'd like.
It's in our packet too, so we could slide to it.
Yeah, that would be great.
We can get it.
Sorry to throw you off pace there.
Yes.
We were trying to get things
Test.
ready for all the, we were
Testing
testing.
your adaptability skills.
Okay, thanks.
There you go.
Nice.
At Dinosaur Hill, our success is deeply intertwined with our partnerships we've built over the years, especially with the city of Rochester and notably with you, the council members. Your support has been a cornerstone in helping us fulfill the mission of connecting people with nature through exploration, recreation, and education. Our programs, whether they're school field trips or community events, are only possible because of these partnerships.
We're going to interrupt you one more time.
Dinosaur Hill's journey began almost 50 years ago when residents recognized the potential in a piece of land that developers had deemed unusable. With a vision for what the space would become, they worked alongside city leaders and educators from the Rochester Community Schools to transform it into a place where the community could connect with nature. Over time, as our programs expanded and our impact grew, the community support helped us build the needed infrastructure, from literally building bridges and nature trails to educational facilities. As we look forward, we're excited to celebrate our 50th anniversary in early October. This milestone is a testament to the vision of the founders and countless individuals who have contributed to our success over the past 5 decades. The celebration will be an opportunity for our community to come together, reflect on our history, and look ahead to a bright future. With Marilyn Trent's leadership and support from the City Beautiful Commission, we are planning an event that honors our past while also setting the stage for the next 50 years. We're eager to share this moment with the community and continue inspiring future generations to appreciate and protect the natural world. Our connection to the community extends beyond events and programs. We're fortunate to have a dedicated group of volunteers who contribute their time and talents to everything from maintaining the gardens to assisting with educational programs. Last year alone, our volunteers contributed over 1,400 hours of service. This level of commitment is a testament to how much Dinosaur Hill means to our community, and we're incredibly proud of it. In closing, I extend my heartfelt thanks for your continued partnership. We're proud to serve as a resource for the City of Rochester, and with your ongoing support, I'm confident that Dinosaur Hill will remain a beloved and vital part of this community for many years to come. Thank you for your time and attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Council, questions? Councilmember Jones.
Actually, Nancy's, Councilmember Salvia had her hand.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvia.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that information. And I'd just like to thank Councilmember Trent for her leadership with Dinosaur Hill. I know it's part of your passion and it meshes in with your skill set well, but thank you for your leadership and bringing this to us tonight, as well as for the 50th anniversary celebration, which is going to be amazing, amazing. My question is, in looking through your 990s, thank you for providing them. Dinosaur Hill has a nice fund balance, nice reserves, and then I might say even a little bit more than that, with almost 700,000 in reserves.
Yes.
Does the board have a spending policy or a distribution policy? You know, do you take income? What is your policy around those funds?
We don't have a policy on that yet, but it's definitely something we should look into because it's finally gotten to a point where it could probably sustain the organization for some time.
Right, exactly. And kind of dovetailing into that, we'd love to see some sort of maybe a new program kicking off around the 50th. Some ideas that come to mind, not saying they have to be, but just composting seems to be a topic that keeps bubbling up in your location, along with what we're doing at the Graham with the year-round farmers market. I think those things dovetail nicely.
Okay.
And there's a lot of talk around rain barrels, so maybe there's something there as well. So just a couple ideas that
Thank you,
I
appreciate
had,
that.
and we love Dino Hill.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jones.
Okay. I have some specific financial questions,
Sure,
so.
I'll do my
and
best.
I was gonna say, if you want to come back at another time, once I kind of throw some of these out. So just, and I have a human resource development degree. I don't have a finance degree, so I'm gonna say that right up front. So I noticed like from 2022 to 2023, there was a substantial decrease in Oakland Township. How does that work for the different communities? Maybe just a broad stroke on how contributions go.
So with Oakland Township, it's often tied to the programs we're delivering to them. And sometimes, I think I alluded to it in the notes, that our fiscal year and the fiscal years of our partners don't always line up. So depending when the invoicing happens and when we're on a cash accrual basis. So like it literally depends on what is in the bank on that day. So the programs have been steady with them, so the funding has been steady. It's just a accounting.
Okay, is that true about RCS? Because there was no dollars from 2000. So the whole year of 2023, nothing from RCS had to do with their year end and their invoicing?
No, with that, it actually ended up being a change in how it was, I can probably bring that up here.
I think this is about page 5 or so, somewhere in
Yeah.
there.
So it ended up being recategorized into field trips rather than its own bin at the time. So it's just an accounting, how the accounting worked out that year.
Okay. Okay, and then it seems like, you know, in 2022, again, looking at the total numbers, so it looks like expenses to income, it looks like, if I'm doing my math right, there was only $6,000 difference in 2023
Yeah.
between, so that means only income of 6,000? Again, I'm not a,
Yeah, net revenue overall.
6,000.
Yeah, so
Okay. Has that been consistent from years past, or is that going
It's-
down, or is that concerning, or?
it's pretty standard. I mean, our budget and, I mean, we're a nonprofit, so
Sure, of course.
literally, it's a nonprofit.
Yeah.
But often
So is-
our expenditures are very close to what we bring in, but somehow staff has always managed to, keep us in the black, so kudos to them.
And how often do you meet as a board of directors?
Quarterly?
So you've been meeting quarterly?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I looked at, like, the different hours,
Not this year.
work hours. And so it looks like one employee works 40 hours a week in-house there at the building? Okay. You go next, or someone else? I had a couple other questions.
ahead.
But I gotta find them, so.
Member Trent?
Oh, yeah, okay, so yes, thank you for coming. I know we've I started working with you on the 50-year anniversary committee. The quarterly part, you're supposed to meet quarterly, but in my understanding, we've only met one time this year.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay, so that would, just want to make sure that was clear. And so I didn't have these numbers at our board meeting that we had last week. So I'm just going to ask a few questions because I didn't realize it was this slim of a budget, and so I am very interested in, I know that Sue Neal, the executive director, couldn't make it this evening, but she's going to be working on a strategic plan that the board will have input on because of a bigger, broader vision, as the community I know has been kind of tapping me on the shoulder and wanting more programming and understanding of how can we grow and make Dinosaur Hill thrive. And with this 50-year anniversary, I mean, we've got a list of, really, heavy hitters, just the first, and I thank you for putting this list together, organizing the list that Ginger Kettleson put together, that the people that founded Dinosaur Hill had this vision, and if you were here in 1973, sorry, I won't give a too long a speech, so let me start. But if you were here in 1973, you would not know of the vision to save that little piece of property. You wouldn't have the vision for OPC or the vision for the community house. So where this community was in 1973, that these people that we're on the shoulders of, that I think that we can re-inject that passion, just like, hey, you're singing my song over here with composting and rain barrels and preserving wetlands, where now, when we're talking about a development, we can't get that. We would not, maybe they would fill it all in with sand now. I don't know, but they had vision, and that's what this organization can bring forth, and I love to see a bigger vision, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Awesome.
Thank you. Somebody want to go after that?
I think Debbie can.
Well, not really, but I just have one more question. And could you go to the Heritage Days piece?
Sure.
I'm trying to understand Heritage Days, and I know that's part of your category also. Expenses to income, how does Heritage Days work? And it seems like, obviously, there's a financial loss there. So if you could just explain Heritage Days to us, because I think there's been some confusion on that.
Sure. It's been a struggle the past, probably since I've been on the board. I've known that Heritage Days was a struggle to keep that, the growth happening. And so as far as expenses go, is there anything in particular that I can?
No, I just want to know, to support an event that appears to be a loss, and when there's only $6,000 a year in income,
Yeah.
that makes it something to consider
Well, and
improving or?
just so I can be clear, the expenses expenses in financial accounting and income for Heritage Days are completely separate.
Sure.
Our administrative and operations person just handles that on
So it's
behalf
not
of Heritage
enrolled
Days.
into your
It's
numbers?
not at any part of our annual budget at all.
Yet, so are the expenses paid by the Heritage Days people? So
Yes.
this is their accounting?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, the balance at the bottom,
Yes.
that actually gives the balance at the time, I think, last June 30th, and then right after this past Heritage Days. So that lets you know exactly what's in the bank and what's.
So they kind of have a bank account that they
Yes.
pull every year from to
Yeah.
do that?
So we treat that, it's a designated account. It's not Dinosaur Hills, it's Heritage Days. It's just managed by us.
Is there any other organization or any other event you do there that's managed that way, or just that one?
Not really. To some extent, we handle we have designated funds for multiple things, where if a donor earmarks it for something, it has to be handled separately. So there are, in the past, there was a nonprofit that dissolved, and we were the beneficiaries of, or partial beneficiaries of that dissolution, and out of that came our Star Lab and the planetarium programs that we're able to, but, you know, that was a very separate
Donor
thing from,
specific, okay.
Yeah.
from our normal budgeting process and income and,
Okay. So first off, I should have said this, Mayor, thank you for what you're doing there. I walk my dog through there every day.
it's.
And my kids grew up doing 4 feet down the trail
Yep.
with Dad on Mondays. He didn't work on those days, so he could do that.
Yeah.
So what a gem. I continue to say that in Rochester, all the gems we have. And I will build on kind of what Nancy said. I would love to see that reserve money being so high, to see a new program or programs that could be brought down a little bit. So, thank you.
Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, sir, for coming in. So the analysis on the Heritage Day financials,
Yes.
does that reflect, is it captured there, the $5,000 that the Rochester Historical Commission provides to this festival?
As far as donations, I believe so. I'm not.
So part of that is, to get that money, you come before council, present the financials, and then submit to the city essentially against that line item against the Historical Commission. So if that's not captured in here, then this would be a net positive, correct?
I'm only the messenger. So really the questions need to go to the Heritage Days Committee. Dinosaur Hill literally just does the financials for that part. And I don't have a hand in that, but I'll do my best to answer those questions for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Hauser.
Sure, so I don't want to pile on, okay, but I'm going to pile on a little bit here. So if I'm looking at the balance on the Heritage Day, it looks like at the end of 2024, the account balance was $9,300, right?
That's correct.
And it looks like the past few years, you guys have been losing approximately $3,000 to $4,000 per year on that.
I'm not sure of the years past.
I guess I'm just concerned if it's a diminishing return on all of these. Is it fair to say that sooner or later, there's not going to be any money to put on the Heritage Festival? Is that how I understand this analysis?
Obviously that's a possibility.
Sure. And has the conversation come up with maybe it's changed from Memorial Day weekend to a different weekend when more people might be in town, or maybe shifting it up a little bit? So I'm just, again, throwing these things out.
Those conversations have definitely happened.
Okay.
I know we've talked about that internally as Dinosaur Hills Board in our participation within this, one small wedge of a larger pie. But yes, those have definitely been concerns.
Who is the individual who would have the information primarily on that? Would that be the treasurer? Does that person take care of all the finances for Heritage Festival?
The accounting happens at Dinosaur Hill.
Okay.
I'm not certain of the inner workings of I don't sit on the committee itself.
I think it's Don Sinkowitz, who's at the DDA all the time.
Don does it? Okay.
Yeah, but he had questions.
He's on the Historical Commission.
Yeah.
It's not Angie Kelly, the treasurer?
Don always seems to know these things, but.
I'm just, and again, it's not a pop quiz. I'm just trying to find out who to, I know it feels probably uncomfortable
Maybe
there,
there's
but
some-
I'm just trying to
These are fair
ask.
questions.
Yeah.
They're very complex relationships, even though they should be very simple.
Okay.
But yeah, our Dinosaur Hills Board merely has it's like a contract to do the very simple accounting for the festival and manage the bank account and make sure that the money's going into the right bins and places.
All right. Thank you.
Councilmember Trent.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Well, obviously, putting forth something like this, it needs some work. In my view, there's some type of recounting and what do we do next? And, this is like house on fire in my mind, but, that's me. I've worked in a lot of nonprofits and this type of thing needs some.
Just To interject, as far as Heritage Days go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, unfair heritage. And then I'd like to go back up to the 2023-22 income. Just so to be clear, so for the city of Rochester, they donate $28,000, really no strings attached. Plus, we also, so just to be clear, so Oakland Township wants services.
Yes.
We do not. I want
That's
to make that clear with everyone. The city also provides the building and the land, and we keep the trails clean
And the maintenance on the
and the
building.
maintenance. And so this is a real partnership with the city
Yes.
with a lot. So we're hoping to reactivate the conversation as to what can we all do seriously to move this forward and have a better understanding, have the quarterly meetings with either its executive director and Alec or whoever it is. But my understanding is that there's been one quarterly meeting this year, and I would like to have two more. So I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I'm going to pile on a little bit. So one of the things that Sue knows that irritates me is we've put in close to $200,000 in the community garden.
Thank you.
The deal that we had was not Dino Hill, it's not your guys' fault, but the people that rent, I see here, the income, we made a little bit of money, that's great. The agreement was weed the paths, so we don't use weed killer, and it looks presentable. The one that Sue manages in Rochester Hills has 0 weeds. Ours is an embarrassment. Jason's been, I think, working with her, trying to get volunteers out there, but it's gotta get better. We spent a lot of time. That man right there redid your whole gardens, basically, and again, we're right back to where we were before we started it, and we're not gonna do it again. And the community loves it. Well, they need to adopt in front of their path and just hammer them to make sure it looks presentable. So if you could take that back, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, what's the difference between our garden and the Rochester Hills garden? Like, is it managed differently?
I think she pays Rochester Hills to keep it weeded, I believe. But that's not the deal they wanted here. They couldn't afford it, so, because they keep the plots so cheap. So it's like volunteers have to take care of the front of their plots, so it doesn't work financially. If the Hills, they have a huge staff, they want to do that, that's great, but that was not the deal we made with them, so.
Can you
Councilmember
explain that
Jones.
in a little more detail? Because I think I'm confused about what
Yeah,
you're
so
saying.
Rochester Hills, Sue took me out there before we redid it this time, perfect, not a weed anywhere. She said, Rochester Hills staff takes care of that. But they, somehow it's built into their fees, or they pay for it or donate it. We didn't have that kind of staff to be managing. So if we redo the garden, and it's right in the written agreement. I literally stopped there at the beginning of the spring and saw a mom and a son out there. And I said, can I just ask you a question? When you signed for this plot, were you told you have to weed in front of your half of your thing? Yes, that's why my son's here. So I was like all excited about it. That started off on a great path, and then boom, nobody's weeding
bad now.
anywhere.
Okay.
It looks
horrible.
bad
And so
now.
it's up to the volunteers to weed. Have it weed day. We remember the church. If we would have known that, the church could have came and done all of that. So it's just, it's got a little bit more attention's got to be paid to it, because it's a beautiful facility now. It just looks terrible. Thank you.
Councilmember Jones?
One more and I'm done. I'm just curious, again, being brand new on city council, every year does Dinosaur Hill come and present like you did today
Yes.
with a financial update?
They're supposed to.
They used to.
Yeah.
They haven't in
It-
the past.
So has
probably
it been
been
a
a
few
while since-
years?
It's been at least 6 years.
Since you've come and done a financial
I
presentation?
could make the
Okay.
comment, it's been 20-some years.
Okay. Well, we're happy you did today.
And we're happy you're here.
Yeah, we're
And
very
sorry we're kind of grilling you, but we're
I
happy you're
just
here.
need to clarify. You're
shooting
never
the
going to come
messenger.
back, I'm
Yes.
sure.
See you in 6 years.
We are happy you are
He's out.
here.
Yes,
Thank you.
there's definitely been a report that has been submitted, whether there was someone here to present it.
I just think this is really important for the community to see. It's a important part of who we are as Rochester, so this was great today to get more insight, so thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Housen?
So I've got just a general question. The city obviously gives Dinosaur Hill money, is that correct?
Yep,
Is it
28,000.
20,000, right. So as a condition to payment, when it comes time for budgetary purposes, why not have it where, as a condition to getting money, they have to come in and present their arguments and their case and update city council, or else you don't get the check. It's a quid pro quo, and it's not like we're asking them to do anything out of the ordinary. It's present us why you need this money, present us what you're doing with it, and then after consideration, then we give it a thumbs up or thumbs down. But just to continue to give dollars and not hear from someone, I don't care if it's Dennis or Hill or any other entity, doesn't seem to make very much sense, and at least in my
Like I
view.
said, I'm pretty sure that you've heard from us, just not in person.
Okay, well, it would be in person. Okay, and Nick, I'm not busting your chops. It's
No,
not you.
it's
It's just,
fair.
it's the concept.
It's-
Yep.
Everyone else does it in person.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome, thank you.
Right, and I'd just like to say, one, thank you for coming and thank you for this report. You know, I see this, the good news is that I see this large fund balance, but, you know, what are you doing with it? You know, should you be updating the building with this I mean, we'd like to see some plan, 'cause that's a lot of money. And so we'd like to see, and then some way to grow this, the whole thing. So like we talked a little bit before the meeting, you know, at a future meeting, maybe come back with some of those ideas.
Sure.
All right, well, the Inquisition is over.
You passed.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Yeah, likewise.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, all right. Next, we have a presentation from Cheryl Phillips regarding the Community Feline Program. As we've heard, there's been some issues with stray cats around town, and we're not going to solve the problem tonight, but I know Marilyn reached out, and we're just going to have some informational things today to kind of get us maybe started on some path. So welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, City Council. I'd like to say before I begin that I have a lot of roots in Rochester. My great-grandparents had a dairy farm off Tinkin Road, and my great-grandfather helped build the first church, St. Andrew, in Rochester. So I spent a lot of wonderful years out here, and it sure has changed. Beautiful, but it's changed. I'd like to start off by introducing, let's see, is this working? What am I doing? Not getting.
Just use the scroll wheel.
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Thank you again for inviting Ken and me to meet with you to discuss helping our community felines who are only there due to irresponsible guardianship. I often say they didn't fall from the sky. I prefer the term community to feral because feral has a negative connotation. And most, if not many of these cats were once pets and were abandoned by their guardians. So therein lies the problem. And then, once they're out on the street, they become fearful of humans. Again, I often say they didn't fall from the sky, and so now it is our responsibility to do something to help these animals who are helpless. I applaud you for wanting to help the community and its felines, and as Mr. Hauser and I talked earlier, we may not have all the answers tonight, but it's a start, and we can certainly have an impact on the animals in their lives. As a leader, Rochester can develop a community feline program as a model for other communities in Michigan, and there are already several, excuse me, that we can draw from to help in developing a program. Ken Kempkins, who is with me tonight, is the former executive director of the Humane Society of Macomb. He is now currently a board member. When Ken came into the Humane Society of Macomb over 7.5 years ago, it was a kill shelter. Excuse me, Ken turned that shelter around, and today it is a no-kill shelter, and the reputation is just pristine as to what it was years ago from what they were doing to the animals at that shelter. So, welcome, Ken, and thank you. I have been a TNR volunteer since 2012. I have rescued, spayed, neutered, vaccinated, provide medical care, helped house over 1,400 cats myself. On the street, in my car, I've never been bitten, scratched, or had a disease, so I want to make sure everyone's aware of that because these cats rarely have any diseases. I mean, any animal that scratches you or bites you, whether it's your own cat or your own dog, you're going to need to tend to. But they are not rabid, they're not running around full of diseases. So with that, I'm going to ask Ken to come up. Well, I'm going to review the agenda first, Ken, then we'll go from there. So we're going to talk about community felines, who they are and why they are here. we're going to talk about TNVR, trap, neuter, vaccinate, return, what it is, the process, and the advantages of conducting TNVR, what we can do as a community to help our community felines, and next steps. And I do have some frequently asked questions, but if we don't get time for that, we can always address that later, Marilyn, as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ken. And Ken, you're going to kick it off the slide, illuminate what will happen if we do nothing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, good evening. Excuse me. Tonight we're going to talk to you about the community cats. The choices that you have are simple. You can establish a program to solve the problem, or you can ignore it. I'm going to start out by showing you what happens if you ignore it. If you have one female cat, that cat can have up to 3 litters a year and 4 cats a year. And about 50% of those cats are going to be females. So in the first year, you're going to end up with 12 more cats. After 2 years, you can see it grows to 67 cats. Now, assuming that you only have this one female that you started with, if you have 10 females, you can make that number times 10. 3 years, 376 cats. In 4 years, 2,107. And you can see, after you get to 8 years, you're in the millions. 2,072,000 cats, 72,000 cats. It's up to you. If you want to ignore that and let that grow, it's your community that you have to deal with. For 7.5 years at the Humane Society of Macomb, we have the Humane Society of Macomb has a foundation. And every year that foundation donates money to a cause and pays for 300 cats to be spay or neutered. And so it's been a very effective program, and it's done well in Sterling Heights, St. Clair Shores. There's a few communities where it's really been remarkable what they've done. So I have to be the bearer of bad news and tell you what's going to happen if you don't do it. And Cheryl gets to do the positive thing and show you how that you can change it and make this a good situation for both your community and your cats.
Thank you, Ken. I think that slide is illuminating, and it's a real challenge. But together as a community and people in our community, we can do something to prevent this and to help our animals and our community. If we do nothing, when cat populations are present, the choice is not between having cats or not having cats. The choice is between having a humanely managed community cat population or unmanaged one. There's no other choice. So who are the community felines? They're free-roaming cats, and they have the communities in which they live. Generally, they're in one specific area where they're called colonies, and they form family bonds. So this particular colony of X number of cats is in a particular area, and they form a bond. They can be feral, semi-feral, or social, and many of them are social cats that have been abandoned, again, by irresponsible, ignorant guardians. That's the bottom line, ladies and gentlemen. They didn't, again, fall from the sky. They're there because someone in our community abandoned these pets. They're often social with their caregivers, and sometimes they may not be initially, but after working with them for months or years, feeding them and providing the shelter for them, and they come around, they'll become friendly, and often then they can be adopted. With love and trust, these animals often come in our wonderful pets. I have also a sanctuary of 27 cats that came from a hoarding situation, and I can tell you, we're going into the 5th year now, and many of these cats have transformed completely, from being terrified to coming up to me and letting me pet them, comb them, and they're just wonderful animals. So they're fearful, is what it is. They require an outdoor lifestyle. They require a caretaker. They require protection. Generally, we put up what I call little mansions.
Cheryl, you have to stay up there so they can hear you on TV. Sorry.
I can't. I'm going blind here, so I can't see well. So they require a caretaker, protection, food, shelter, and medical care. And generally, we make houses. You can buy little houses, little bins from Home Depot, cut 2 holes in them, put straw in them, and that's their shelter. So there are many inexpensive ways to take care of them. The most expensive cost is going to be the spay and neuter and vaccination of the animals. Why are there community felines? Again, pet owners and guardians are irresponsible and ignorant. They don't understand the impact of not spaying and neutering their pet, and they let them roam. Abandonment and neglect is another issue. Cats are thrown outside. College campuses and trailer parks are notorious for abandoning pets. Kids are up at school, they get a pet, they leave, they go home, and they abandon the pet. What is the pet going to do? The pet's used to being cared for, fed, living indoors. Trailer parks, I can tell you, I did a trailer park 2 years ago. We did a TNR. We TNR'd over 70 cats, and we had another 20 that had to be humanely euthanized because they were in such bad shape. Chief Randazzo and Macomb, who I talked with recently, they did a trailer park about a year ago, another 70-plus cats. And it'd be real simple if there would just be either an ordinance or something within that trailer park to say you have to show proof of your animal being spayed, neutered, and vaccinated before you move in. So there are simple ways to help prevent this. Shelters and rescues, do not spay and neuter before adoption. About 1.5 years ago, PetSmart, we're all familiar with them, they have an adoption program at their stores. They decided that they were not going to spay and neuter before adoption. I called them, I talked to them, talked to their corporate office. They believed that the majority of the people that adopted the pets would spay and neuter them. Maybe 25% wouldn't do that. So you take 10,000 animals, 25% of that, that's a big number, you compound that. So I don't know if they're still doing it. I hope not, because that was not a good situation or a good decision on their part. Deposits do not work. You'll often hear people go into a shelter and they'll say, well, give me a $50 deposit, and then you come back and show me that your animal has been spayed. This is a number from Ken, sitting right here. Over 10 years, they had a coffer of $100,000. That's 2,000 animals where the people never came back to claim that $50. Now, you can say maybe they did get them spayed, maybe they didn't, but I'm not going to leave $50 on the table, are you? I don't think so. Approximately 6.3 million cats and dogs enter shelters annually, with approximately 1 million being euthanized. 1 million, and more than half of those are cats, for no reason other than irresponsible people that are not spaying and neutering their animals and are abandoning them. How do we manage community felines? Through TNVR, Trap, Neuter, Vaccinate, Return. The felines are trapped. We have humane traps. They are brought to a clinic for spay and neuter. Their left ear is tipped, showing us in the community that these cats have already been tipped. So when we go back to trap additional cats, we're not trapping the same cats and taking them in. They are given the distemper. They get a wellness check, rabies, distemper, revolution for fleas, and medical care is needed. Generally, they stay overnight at whatever facility they're in, and they're released the next day. The left ear tip here, you can see a better picture, is a visual. We like to make sure they only take the tip of the ear out, because the ears are very important to cats. As you know, they're primary to their hearing, their predatory instinct. Advantages of TNVR. You have no homeless kittens. Many kittens and cats and dogs that are born on the street can be blind. I have a deaf cat that was rescued from Macomb. We didn't know he was deaf. He had a neurologic condition. We had a kitten this past year, a mom. By the way, cats can get pregnant at 4 months old. So you want to spay and neuter immediately, and you can spay and neuter at 2 pounds very safely. A cat was birthing on the street. A rescuer got the cat, brought the cat in, and they had to do a C-section on the cat, or the cat was in dire pain, screaming, and that was a very serious problem. There are less odors because they're not marking. The males are no longer marking once they're neutered, and they become less aggressive. Less noise, fighting and howling. They're not fighting over the females. And, of course, rodent control. Disneyland in California has had cats there since the 50s. They have about 100 cats there as their colony, and they call them the Disney cats. They even have their own Facebook page. And these cats control rodents at Disneyland. Chicago, Illinois developed a huge program through Treehouse Humane Society. They have 3,000 cats and 1,000 colonies. What happens is the people in Chicago has a tremendous rat problem that was costing them tens of millions of dollars a year just to manage because it got out of control. They go to Treehouse. Each person or business has to have at least 2 cats a pair. They set up shelter for them. They provide food for them. They have guidance ordinances that help work with them, and Treehouse helps them if there's medical care. The program has been so successful that when they first started it in 2015, they had a wait list. And people were trying to buy their way to the top of the wait list to get cats at their home or at their business to help with the rodents. Sterling Heights has an amazing program. Since 2022, I talked with Nicole. They have spayed, neutered, vaccinated 400 cats. They've seen a significant reduction in the amount of cats in their community. And she said the community, they had overwhelming support from the community. Now, as far as feeding, we talked about this. What they're doing is, because most cities have ordinances for pet cats and dogs or other animals, they don't have an ordinance for community cats. So they're now working on an ordinance, and what they're doing for feeding is they can feed in the morning and in the afternoon, then they have to take the food up. So they have 2 times to feed the animals, because the animals will starve if you don't feed them. What are they going to do? And they're not there because they want to be there. They're there because of irresponsible citizens in the community. So they've done a tremendous job. Chief Randazzo in Warren, I talked with him recently too, in Macomb. Warren, Macomb, St. Clair Sheriffs all have programs, and he has best practices that he's put together, and they have a lot of guidance. So, Mr. Hauser, back to our conversation, there's a lot of things we can do and throw around and work to. It just takes creativity and the will to want to help your community and your animals. Lawton, Oklahoma recently put out a program as of December of 2023. There's a $500 fine if you do not spay and neuter. I talked with the animal control director there. If the animal comes into the shelter and it is not spayed neutered, you pick the animal up. You have 3 tries to get 3 calls. They'll follow up with you to get that animal spayed or neutered. If not, you go to court and they fine you and they mandate that the animal spayed and neutered. But I don't think, you don't want to get to that point if you don't have to. There's no effective alternative to TNVR. Trap and kill, community felines are brought to a shelter, and they're not euthanized, they're killed. And because there's no other option for them, barn programs are far and few between, and believe me, in my years doing this, I've been to barns, and I wouldn't put anything in some of these barns. So you need to know what is happening to these animals if you take them out of your communities, where they're going, and who's going to care for them. Many can't be adopted, and there's no TNR program, so to Ken's point, they just keep breeding and breeding and breeding in your community. You do nothing, the felines will continue to overbreed, exceeding the carrying population of the community. Even if you did trap and kill, what's going to happen is there's what we call the vacuum effect. You take the animals out of their territory in your community because they're not going to leave. That is their home. Remember, wherever they live, if they're living here, this is a colony home, whether it's 10 or 12 cats. You take them out, you take them to the shelter kills them, you're going to have more moving in. So you cannot it's a vicious cycle if you do not conduct trap, neuter, vaccinate, return, and educate your population in your community to spay, neuter. What can you do to help? Educate, educate, educate. Organize a proactive, large-scale and targeted TNVR program. We cannot adopt our way out of overpopulation, and you can't kill your way out of it either. And I don't think anybody would want to do that. You can assemble and train a volunteer base and partner with other community organizations. As I was talking to Marilyn, I've known Marilyn for quite some time. And I'd be willing to help work with you, help train volunteers, come out and do a first trap for you, 10 or 12 cats. I live in Northville, so I'm way on the other side of town. But I would be willing to work with you, and Mr. Hauser, whomever you assign to be a point person in this, to try and get a program together that is.
Mr. Hauser, you're assigned.
Yeah, you don't want me assigned to you.
Oh, I'd love working with you.
Sure.
I think that you can have a successful program and help your community and help the cats. So what we have found in my research, and prior to coming here, I've done a lot of research. Statistics show that over 81% of people want to help the community cats, and 30% of people in your communities plus are already caring for and feeding them. So you've got a community that wants to support this and help you. Now you'll talk about odors and other things, and I can get to that and address that. So you want to align with the large volume TNR clinic. I know, Marilyn, we talked about you having a vet that would work with you. All About Animals is certainly an option. Michigan Humane Society has the Neil Mead program that is a TNR program, and they're right in Rochester Hills. So there are options to find locations to take the cats to spay and neuter. And you would take them in groups, 6, 10, 12, depending on how large the colony is. We'd have to get a handle on that, the colonies and where the colonies are.
Can I ask a quick question? How much would it cost for each?
Well, generally, if you go to All About Animals, the cost is $55 a cat. Through the Neil Mead program, I don't know. I'm just getting into that program. It is generally what we pay in Huron Valley in Ann Arbor is $55 a cat. There's spay, neuter, vaccinations, and Revolution and Prazi, which is a parasite treatment.
So how, and the cities pay for that?
Well, the city would pay for it,
Okay.
yes. Or you would have a fundraiser, which I would recommend having fundraisers, getting grants. Sterling Heights has been able to get grants. Chief Randazzo has gotten grants, so you can also apply for that. As a municipality, it would be, I think, much easier for you to raise money because you go out to your community and you'd be amazed at how much the community will want to help you do that.
Thank you.
So current ordinances focus on pet dogs and cats, as I mentioned earlier. It is recommended that you develop a TNR ordinance because the current ordinances are not going to advocate or support what you're trying to do. So Sterling Heights is currently working on that for feeding because you don't want to leave the food out at night because then you're attracting wildlife. So if you feed in the morning, early afternoon, or even once a day, then the cats know where their food source is because otherwise you're going to starve them. And I don't think anyone wants to do that.
So we have to provide the food for these cats?
Generally, what will happen is if you TNR community, there's probably already a colony caretaker there that is providing food. But what you can do is you can also do food drives. You can go to PetSmart, Premier Pet, all the different locations, Costco. I don't know if you have a Sam's Club here. And go to them and ask them, did you say something? Amazon, and ask them to donate food to your program. There's plenty of food banks around too. Michigan Humane Society has a huge food bank program for the community cats if you're 501c3. So there's options, and I would be happy to work with you and whomever you assign to try and work through those and help you get to where you need to get to.
Thank you. Councilmember King.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so to Cheryl's point, we're on Greg Street. We've had 2 litters that I'm aware of kittens in the past month, and I know that the community is taking care of them. We've already, the first litter with 6 of them, somebody had, taken in, and they're working on getting them neutered and adopted out. We've got one of the other 5. That I'm aware of. And so, and then people are feeding them. So they are being looked after. It's on a very much, I think, community basis. But I think if we have some sort of structure around it, if we can help bring additional resources with food or even with fundraising to support, the neuter piece of it, then that'll help. And then, maybe it's by neighborhood. People have to kind of, commit to wanting to help out, because I don't think it's realistic necessarily to have, the chief or somebody on the city, going out to every one of these areas. But if we can bring the resources, it seems like there's people already that are willing to do it.
And I think you'd be surprised at how many people would volunteer if you said, we're going to implement a TNVR program, and we'd like to have people help us to do TNR certain days of the week because you would align with the vet. to do that. The other point you're making here is that if you don't do anything, next year you're gonna have quadruple what you have now. And the community cats, the cats living outside, my last cat was 18 years old. So the community cats really do not live that long. What is it, Ken, 3 to 5 years? They have a 3 to 5 year lifespan because it's rough out there for them. So if you can get it under control, and it can be done through a TNVR program, and you get it manageable, and you keep those cats spayed and neutered, and you take care of them, and you just let nature take its course, you won't have a problem like that in Rochester. But if you don't, you're gonna continue to have a problem that's gonna get so big, you're gonna have animal control people running around chasing animals all day long. And they say in the United States, we spend $800 million a year on animal control. So if you take that away, that they can allocate those resources to something that is more productive than chasing animals, because the people in your community are helping to take care of the animals.
Okay, so, well, I was gonna say, do you wanna, and I started it, did you wanna finish your presentation, or you?
Yeah,
why
I just, yeah,
why
there's.
don't you finish it, wrap it up, and then we'll have some questions.
Okay, so in closing, a community feline program will drive down the number of cats in the community and shelters. It dramatically reduces the number of cats killed. It can reduce costs to the city for rat control, rat disposal, and poison, which is, of course, hazardous to pets, children, and the environment. So I would ask that you give this strong consideration, and I would be happy to work with the point person to help try and lay this out, whatever it is. Look at all the devil's advocate, problems, issues, challenges, opportunities, but there is more of an opportunity here than there is any challenge for your community going forward. With that, I have some frequently asked questions, but I guess I'll just open the floor for questions, Mayor.
Questions, Councilmember Hauser?
And Ken?
Oh, Marilyn, why don't you go first, please?
Yeah, I would just like to say that Cheryl is not new to this community with cats. She worked with Pat Kane, was it 8 or 9 years ago?
And I worked with several other people in your community, yes.
To trap, neuter, and release. They did some of that a few years ago. So I wanted to thank you for doing that. And I think it was all on your dime, or you did not get any?
Yeah, it was through our foundation. We
Yeah,
have a
it was through
foundation, so.
Cheryl's foundation. So thank you for that, and thank
And-
you for coming.
The 1,400 cats that we've done, we've raised, and 100% of it goes to the animals, $165,000.
She's very dedicated.
Councilmember Hauser?
Sure. Cheryl, thank you, and Ken, thank you. And I also, before I start with some questions for you and Ken, I do have some questions for the chief, the fire chief, if that's okay.
Normally I get questions about St. Bernards.
All right.
Dalmatians.
And Cheryl and Ken, as you may or may not, fire chief is kind of in charge of animal control and code enforcement when it comes to trapping cats and other wildlife. So he's the resource. And a couple of questions I have for you, Chief, is do we have an understanding of the number of feral cats or community cats, it's semantics to me, in city of Rochester?
Well, I would tell you that we don't know what the number is. I will tell you also that City Manager Bandit challenged me 3 weeks ago to become the cat expert. I don't know that I am, but I certainly have talked to a lot of people and substantiating, as you would expect, the comments that are made here. We do have some local resources that I've contacted that live in Rochester Hills that are willing to help us out. I guess, and I didn't answer your question, but I would share that whatever program we decide to do is a program that needs to be maintained. In other words, trap and neuter for 2 weeks doesn't make it. Trap and neuter as a regular policy has to happen, and it has to be consistent. And finding people who are willing to go ahead and do that, and there are some local resources. Of course, we'll take whoever we can get to help us. But the way it was explained to me is it is educating the people and their own, and folks who live in the area. I would tell you that we have basically 2 colonies in Rochester right now. Colony number 1, I would say, is in the 4th Street Castell area for the most part. And the other colony is in Griggs, someplace in the first block or so, first or second block. We have not had complaints, and I go by complaints in essence, but everything to the east side of Letica. I'm not aware of any colonies over there. So if any homeowners are watching tonight and you have seen feral cats in your neighborhood, please let us know so that we know what we can go ahead and do. So the education of the people who are feeding, when to feed and how to feed, where to go ahead and take and clean up or clear up the areas to where the cats are staying, operating in the trap, spray, neuter, and then return. They have said that there are some cats that you may have to take a look at for some barn programs. And as you said, their barn programs are very important to have the right barn program. I know the way it was explained to me, if they do go to a barn, they need to be kept kind of contained for the first 30 days till they get used to the barn area and everything else, at least for the good ones. And there are some in the local area that might be some possibilities. So I don't know that this is an issue that is a straight and narrow fix. It's, to me, kind of faceted when we go ahead and take a look at it. We work on the areas to where the colonies are at. We try to educate the people in regards to if they're feeding, when they feed, and we need to have then a concerted effort for trapping. And it can't just be trapping this weekend or trapping next weekend and wait 3 or 4 weekends. And then the other piece that I learned is kittens. Kittens, a lot of times, if you can get them after they've been weaned from their mothers, are typically capable of being adopted out and getting them before they become, I'll call them wild, but streetwise, I guess, would be the thing. And then the same lessons.
I like that. Community.
The same lessons I learned were brought up is that once you start neutering and bringing the cats back, as I was told, it's the males aren't looking for dates anymore, so that they kind of leave the area and they stop spraying. So I don't know, I didn't answer your question, Councilman Hauser, but I wanted to go ahead and share the information that I learned. And I'm hoping that City Manager Band will at least give me a C on my report.
Well, and I appreciate it because
That was good.
you were able to at least identify some areas in the city that we've heard before.
Yes.
Okay, and the issue that I've been having and the concerns that have been raised to me are by the residents who live there. And I appreciate very much about the cats. And I want to make sure that we're doing everything we can. But at the same time, we're here because of irresponsibility of prior cat owners. We don't have college campuses, we don't have trailer parks. So based on what you had presented there, Ms. Phillips, we can only presume that the reason we have a cat problem in these particular areas is because of irresponsible cat owners. And the issue that I take with that is that burden is now being imposed on other residents who have nothing to do with this. So when my inbox gets filled with complaints about cats that are defecating on their sidewalks or on their front porch or in their backyards or urinating on their car tires, that to me is an issue that needs to be dealt with. And I can't subscribe to a concept where we're going to trap, release, and relocate to the very same place where this issue is happening unless other measures are taken. And by that I mean we have to eliminate the food source, or we have to relocate. Instead of return, the R should be relocate. Yeah. And I understand that's going to be a hardship to these cats, but the greater hardship is to the property owners who live here, who pay taxes, who want their yards free from cat feces and urine, who have nothing to do with this. So that's my objection, and those are my primary concerns with the program that was articulated by Cheryl and Ken. How can we find a balance? How can we work around that to make sure that people who have nothing to do with these cats don't wake up and have to deal with it on a daily basis while still being humane and respectful to these animals?
And I think it starts by taking the first step. And out of all of the people that I talked to, and I heard tonight too, it's called education.
Right.
When we start talking about people who are in the colonies, and so the cat colonies, if I can refer to them like that, in the cat colonies, there's the cat lovers and the cat haters. And what I mean by that is there's people who are feeding in the cat colonies, and they have for many years, and there's people who are cat haters, and I don't mean that derogatively, but who would rather not see the cats there. This is not going to be a problem that we are going to be able to solve overnight without, and the terminology I'll use is having a safari and I don't mean being inhumane, but unless that's really what we're looking to do, is to go out and go ahead and eliminate the cats, that's a decision that somebody more smarter than I am would have to make. But I would tell you that the first step would be to educate and to go ahead and start working through a process. So my recommendation to council is for us to go ahead and be committed. And when I talk about commitment, it gets back into at least start the journey in one fashion or another. I understand the people who are being subjected to the feces and to all of the bad pieces of the cats, but the only way we can go ahead and start reducing it is by reducing the population of cats, and a humane methodology is by getting them treated and neutered so that they stop reproducing. When the people I talked to said that cats can have 3 litters a year, I went like, holy smokes, man, how do you ever get ahead of that? And you really almost can't unless you're doing something that you're committed to. So no magic bullet here, or to go ahead and solve it, other than being dedicated and starting a process that the community would accept.
Thank you, Chief. So I don't think we're going to solve this
No,
tonight, so
definitely
why don't we, Councilmember King had a comment?
So I kind of have a proposal of what
Yeah.
we could do as like a next step. I think we should put together some sort of committee consisting of 1 or 2 council members, the chief, if you'd be willing to, potentially 1 city employee, and maybe ask for people in the community too. We can work on putting together the education, coming up with an outreach plan for the community, and then bringing a plan to the city council, a proposal for what sort of resources we should have with this. Because educating them on spay and neuter is one thing, but if we can also provide, hey, we're gonna have a number of traps, live, humane traps available. Here's who you're gonna go to get that. How do you get it? How do you return them, right? We have we're pulling together fundraising so we can help, if a neighborhood's willing to do the work of getting the cats together and going and taking them somewhere, we can help you pay for it, right? We can help with feeding or go to the food banks, but let's maybe put together some sort of group that can work on what this path forward is. And then, rather than kind of maybe debate it as a whole, and come back with a plan for the
So,
council.
Mr. Mayor, if I could give, the only thing I agree 100%. The only thing that I would tell you is the time to act is pretty soon.
Yeah.
In other words, you need to,
Right, we agree.
you need to give me when I have to have my book assignment done. Otherwise, I'll wait too long to get it finished. And I guess the point I'm making is
30
if we
days.
don't make a concerted effort now, this is coming into September. We're taking a look at September, October, November. And if you're starting to trap cats, you're now looking at maybe freezing them in the cage. So if we're gonna start something, we should probably take a look at trying to get something rolling sooner instead of later, Mr. Mayor.
And I think that's a great idea, and maybe even like a pilot program. Pick one of
Right,
the,
yeah.
Pick a
Griggs
colony.
Street,
Yeah, pick
and
a
say, okay,
colony.
let's try.
4th and Castell.
Yeah.
Just a real
Councilmember
quick
Trent.
thought. I mean, when I say that, I was thinking 10 colonies, 20 colonies. We've got 2 colonies. One of them is on Griggs with Councilmember King, who knows this closer to this than I am, because we don't have one in my neighborhood. So, I think it would be a good, just even a pilot too. Without having to do,
Yeah,
get the committee at the same time,
we
but,
put-
to just start somewhere. And I think.
So why don't I, if you want to volunteer, let me know, and then the city manager can appoint some people from the city.
I'm
and-
assuming I'm probably just got
Yeah, you
assigned.
did. Yeah, you did.
Ding.
Yeah.
Yes, I
And,
mean,
I'd be happy to help too.
yeah, Councilmember Kim, does anybody?
And then, Mr. Mayor, if we could get some volunteers in the colonies,
Yes.
somebody who is there, who kind of knows the cats and where they're at, where they're being fed from. I think we need to Councilpersons Hauser about feeding, about how they're doing it, what they're doing. We certainly don't want to attract skunks and.
Right, and so
other
the
things.
committee's going to come and bring it back to the council for our
Put me on the
Yep.
list. Seriously, I'll be more than happy to assist in that.
I have one last question for Cheryl. So I know there's nonprofits where we do our best work in partnerships. I know there's a nonprofit on the west side. There's one in Macomb County. Are there any nonprofits in Oakland County that we can work with? You have them?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Great.
And Chief, I would be happy to come and
Perfect.
develop this program, we can call it.
I have my technical expert.
Okay,
Okay.
awesome.
I'd be happy to go out on the street with the first group and track.
Yeah.
And I've done,
You're signed up, yes,
Yes.
thank you.
I'm good.
Thank you.
You can come back home to Rochester.
Yep, and I commend you all for taking this
Yeah.
monumental step to
Right.
help.
I think we need to, I think we all agree we wanted to be proactive on this, so it's all good. I'll meet with the city manager, Councilmember King and Hauser's expressed an interest. You get a few people, and we'll get this going.
Yeah.
We have a
Miss-
very active book club that's been talking on this subject, so I've got some people at the top of
There
the
you go.
list.
There you
Nick,
go.
I've
Get the
got some
book club.
people on,
Get that book club.
hold on, what's it? You got the book.
Microphone.
You need to come to the microphone.
May I just say one thing about the spraying and the odors and everything? I have in my slides deterrents. Vinegar and water, you spray it around your yard, it's gonna stop the cats from coming there. But the biggest deterrent is going to be putting in the TNVR program and reducing the population, period, right?
Yeah, my understanding is it's the boys looking for dates is the reason why they're spraying, so.
Yep.
Problem
And they'll stop that once they
Yeah.
do it.
And then, Mr. Mayor, just.
Boys looking for dates, I keep hearing
That's
that.
the way it was. I'm just a fire chief, and maybe that's the way she thought I could understand it.
Agencies and
Yeah.
another one.
Maybe
Yes.
that's,
Yep, we
maybe
got
that's
it.
the
We got
world's
it.
problems right there, I
And
don't
then,
know.
Mr. Mayor, just, there will be some costs, and the same numbers I heard tonight are kind of in the same area, something between $55 to $75 to go ahead and do that. And then maybe council, and we can work in a subcommittee, maybe there's some sort of stipend that goes to the nonprofit to help support what they're trying to go ahead and do too. And I'm certain we can bring back some sort of proposal to council for their
Very good.
consideration, so.
Great.
Very
right.
good.
All right?
And
Thank you.
Cheryl, thank you for coming.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Appreciate your help too.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, now we got that solved.
Nick, I've
And,
got some people who, for the citizens.
Yeah.
I'll give you their names.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we need to get going on this. Okay. Next is a presentation from the Mount Avon Cemetery Advisory Board. Welcome.
No, but they live there, and they're gonna talk about what's going on.
Hello, everyone. As an aside, on my walk yesterday on Third between Wesley and Helen, I saw 4 cats. Yeah, so in 8 years, there'll be 32 million cats.
Right.
Yes, right.
And 3 of them were little cats.
16 years
Yeah,
will be
I saw 4 of them. I also saw 7 deer, but that's a whole different
Oh, don't get started.
discussion. So,
Okay.
all right, I'm gonna hopefully do this real quick. Jack DeFranco from the Mount Avon Cemetery Advisory Board, back to see everyone again. Really just a quick presentation. Last time we talked about this, probably half of you perhaps were on the council, maybe less than that. I don't know, but we thought it was really good to update you on what's been going on with us. So there's an update and there's an ask that frankly is the same ask we had the last time we went before the city council, which was back in 2019, right before COVID. So anyway, quick update on some prior activities, talking about some of the capital improvements that we had proposed or wanted to pursue, brought some more conceptual drawings, a little talk about the financial discussion, and then we'll go right to our request. So some of the stuff, some of you might have already seen before, so we were asked to kind of recap some of the prior activities. So we came together originally, the advisory board was sort of reconvened back in 18. We had a full group of folks that were involved. Some of our objectives were we look at things like operations, maintenance, capital improvements, financial items, and then potentially events. But the reality is the bulk of what we were focusing on was really capital improvement activities for the cemetery as well as the related financial items. So again, we got together in 2018. We did certain things along the way. We updated the pricing. We looked at programs to repair some of the tombstones. There was a bunch of things that were more, operational in nature. We developed an initial capital improvement plan that we'll talk about in a moment. We had a couple presentations to City Council, both in 18 and 19. Actually got approvals for what we were looking to do at that point in time in terms of the direction. And then when COVID-19 hit, everything kind of came to a screeching halt. And there's been a few things that have happened since then, but we're trying to kind of get things ramped back up again here. So when we talk about capital improvements, what are we talking about? So really, there is a few areas of focus. There's the perimeter fencing, the entries, the signage, and the outbuildings. And when we think about capital improvements, we're talking about safety, effectiveness, and aesthetics. But the reality is, in terms of safety, there's really no big issues. There's not any big things that we have of concern. In terms of operationally, again, no major issues. There's maintenance that goes on an ongoing routine basis. So there's really no issues there. It really comes down to aesthetics. And the reality is, when I lived in Oakland Township for 16 years. We moved down here about 8 years ago. And at the time, I recall Mayor Cuthbertson and I said, you know, we got this really great, fantastic cemetery, but it's got this god-awful chain link fence, because anything else that can be done around it. He said, well, get involved, try to get some people together and see what we can do to maybe make some improvements. So really, a lot of what we're talking about is aesthetic improvements to the cemetery. And by that, we mean things that would benefit the cemetery itself to make it more respectful as far as the environment and make it more attractive. You know, we're always trying to attract more customers who want to, you know, utilize the cemetery going forward. But more importantly, we think there's a benefit to the community in general. You really can't walk around downtown or that section of downtown with, in some way, shape, or form, you know, walking past or walking near the cemetery. I think Nick does it 4 times a day. So I think that that's an important thing for the community. It's just an amazing cemetery if you look at what's going on in there in terms of the trees and the historic grave sites. And we think at the end of the day, you know, having that appeal in downtown is a nice thing to have, but also it's a beneficial thing even from the standpoint of property values. So again, some of the areas are, again, the perimeter fencing. Again, it's in good shape, but it's a chain link fence. The idea was to remove that fencing, add some decorative limestone columns at various spots, install new fencing, basically commercial grade, powder coated, low maintenance fencing, probably keep it at 5 feet, or 4 feet, I should say. Also redo the entries with some columns and some various other things to make it more attractive. There's a service entry over on First that would pretty much continue to be there, but it would be, again, made from the same material. So we're, again, looking at those sorts of things. We've talked about updating the signage. It looks a bit dated, but again, in keeping with perhaps the appearance of what we're talking about with the fencing and the entryways, updating the signage, would be a nice thing to do. And then the last thing we kicked around is we've got a couple of outbuildings along First Street. Functionally, they're fine. But we thought, boy, is there some things that we can do by perhaps, redoing the outside with some stonework, maybe some new siding, something to make them look more attractive. So again, we kicked around those ideas. And we did some conceptual drawings. We've got a little drawing book here with some ideas. So again, you guys have all seen what, in commercial grade powder coated fence looks like. Again, maybe some spots where we do some stone columns in between to kind of break it up a little bit. That's what those limestone columns would sort of look like. And there's some other places in and around downtown we've done that, so it would tie into what we've done elsewhere. Perhaps the entryways could have, some combination of some fencing and some stonework. Got some other conceptual drawings. So again, just to give you a rough idea of what we're looking at doing. We're not talking about building brick walls or, massive, fences and so on and so forth. That would not be appropriate for what we're doing down there. So it's interesting when we first talked to City Council about this concept, the general question was, well, that's interesting. What do you think it'll be? What do you think it'll cost? Now, some of this stuff is outdated back when we were doing much of the primary work before. We got some quotes for fencing and various other things. But you can see we were still looking at, even just for the fencing and the entries, still something in the $250,000 to $300,000 range, and maybe certainly some more money for the outbuildings. I can tell you right now, those are light. By how much I don't know. We haven't gotten new quotes, but that's light. But it's not 10,000 and it's not 2 million. But clearly, there's important things that would need to be done, and they ain't cheap. I'm going to go back before I could. So it was interesting because I don't know what everyone's thoughts are, but effectively the message we were getting before was, hey, this is great idea. I think the community would be supportive of this. You can do whatever you want, propose whatever you want, as long as you can find the money to pay for it. because there really isn't any money to pay for it. So we've always had this mindset on the advisory committee of trying to think about ways to get this thing funded. And we've looked at a lot of different things. There was probably a list of 10 things we were looking at before, from historical grants to, I don't know, various other methods to raise money for these projects. And we sort of have boiled it down to a short list of potential funding sources to do this. The first one is there could be some sort of special project funding with some developer or some other work that could be done in and around downtown, where perhaps the developer, in their aim to support the community, would make a donation to this cause. The second one is kind of an important one, and perhaps the one that is going to require some approval. So what we decided to do is we started to look at ways to perhaps identify some funding sources, and is what can we do within the cemetery to come up with some additional funding. And we've spent a lot of time, and Jason's been great, Leanne's been great, and what we came up with was there happens to be an access road, actually several of them, but there's one access road within the cemetery, within the monument section, that is there but really not needed anymore. So what if we repurpose that access road and turn it back into saleable plots? And it happens to be in the monument section where there's no more plots available. And there's approximately 70 that we've identified. We've sort of mapped out what those are and how to do it. And frankly, as you'll find later, there's a little bit of cost to plotting it out, and all the work that can be done by DPW. All we have to do is remove the asphalt paved road in there, do a little bit of grading, have it plotted out, and we're ready to rock and roll. We think those are, again, there's plus or minus 70 of them. The last time those were priced, when we even had any available, which we haven't had, they were priced at $2,000. We might be able to inch that up. So we think there's probably $140,000 to $150,000 worth of incremental revenue associated with the sale of those plots. So the idea is, hey, City Council, I'll split it with you. In other words, can we perhaps earmark half of those incremental funds to the improvement program, and the other half just goes into the general fund for the cemetery, right? So we can basically use that as one thing that might be able to help out. The second thing we thought about doing is, upon developing those plots, is using that as an opportunity to do some fundraising. In other words, if we can go to the community and say, hey, listen, we're doing some cool things. We want to do some cool things at the cemetery. We've got these new monument plots available, and we're also doing this in connection with a fundraiser. And we might get creative to say, who wants to sponsor an entryway? Who wants to do this? Who wants to do that? So we started thinking about ways to do things via fundraisers. And along the lines of that, I kind of thought, I had been on the Board of Trustees for the Community Foundation for, I don't know, like 10, 15 years. I have a donor-advised fund there. So I spoke with Joe Allen about it, and as we kicked it around, and my wife is here, I said, you know something, why don't we just go ahead and move 20 grand from our fund into a new bucket at the foundation for this cause as a seed thing. Talked to Vern Pixley about it. I think he threw in, or Pixley threw in 5, so we had 25. And then I spoke with Joe Allen, and I think the foundation itself said, well, we'll match that. So we actually, literally before even getting out of the gates, we got $50,000 at the community foundation.
Thank you.
For this. And in my discussion with Joe Allen, and I can't remember what her director of development is, Tammy, I've had a meeting with them, and they're like, we've just been talking to people around the community, and we think that there's support for this. And maybe they got overly, they're like, we think there's probably a way to raise several $100,000. And I'm like, okay, that's great. We have to walk before we run. But we think that there's an opportunity to engage the community, to do some fundraisers in connection with the new plots and raise money for this cause. And then again, we could be asking, the city council for some support from the city as well. I also am a firm believer, and maybe this is the way my dad raised me, which is like, go find the money first, and then you can buy a new bike. So, we think if we can start to do these things, like we think the easy thing is, let's just get cracking on the development of these new plots, right? Because regardless of what happens, we should do that anyway, because that's an opportunity to expand the capacity and also to raise some funds. Once we do that, and as we're doing it, we can look at doing these various fundraising activities. And then we see where we are. Perhaps we do this in phases. Perhaps we do something along 3rd Street first. Perhaps we do the entries first and the fence second. I don't know. But ultimately, we want to move in that direction. I mean, I've been down here now for 8 years. We kicked this around 8 years ago, and 8 years later, We still got a chain link fence. So my thinking is, I'm not going anywhere, we're not going anywhere, let's do what we can to at least move the ball forward on this, and hopefully over time, we can make some progress. So really, at the end of the day, really all we're trying to do is just get everybody updated. We'd like to go ahead and move forward to just repurpose that road to access 70 new plots. We need probably a couple $1,000s, Jason said, for the survey company to plot those. DPW can essentially do the work, and then again, once we can do that, we can talk about put together a program to sell those, doing it along with a fundraiser, maybe exploring some project funding, and then again having really just the support of City Council to going ahead and doing these capital improvements. Because candidly, we can't put ourselves in a position to going and trying to do a fundraiser when we're not going to get the support to actually do the ultimate work to make these improvements happen. So that's basically it. I tried to crank through quickly, but maybe some questions from folks?
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvia.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm also on the Community Foundation Board, and I fully support all of this. My only question is for DPW staff. We are good with converting this? We don't need this road, this section? Other access points, okay, so we're good. So I'm good with supporting this, and I do think that I've talked to a lot of the neighbors around there, and I know people that have said, if something is gonna happen, I would put some money in. So I think we will get support. And my last, I'll say ask, is that we engage Pat McKay to make sure that we're very historic in our fencing, in the entries and the gates. I think that is part of our charm in Rochester.
Right. Let me comment on that, because I do think it's important. We did along the way, I can't remember who we engaged with from the historical element, but what's fascinating about that, if we want to truly be historically accurate, there would be no fence, because originally there was no fence.
But they put fences up to keep the cows out.
No, there was no fences, because they were roaming naturally. The only place there was a fence was right on the east side, the most oldest section, was a little bit of fencing that a baby could crawl over, right? So really, ultimately, there was no fence. In fact, we even thought about, I was really excited and supportive of the idea, wait a minute, let's do no fence. Let's just do the front entries and just have no fence. We were driving up north, we probably saw 3 cemeteries with no fence. But we've had cars slam into or go through.
We need a fence. We need a fence.
You know, even if you can step over the 4-foot fence, it just discourages somebody. So we think that's important to have a fence. The next most historically accurate thing historically was a chain link fence, because we've had that there since probably, I don't know, maybe the 50s or the 60s. So whatever we're going to do, frankly, we're going to make it look historically appropriate for the community. That's why, again, industrial grade powder coated fence with some of these things. And again, I'm more than happy, all these little drawings I've sort of mocked up. Dominic Tringali was the architect on my house. We're going to brainstorm with him. We'll come up with ideas and show everybody, make sure everybody's supportive of it. We want to make sure it's something that everybody's happy with. And that's the ultimate goal.
Councilmember Jones.
Councilmember Hauser?
Oh, Jones, did you?
Oh, yeah.
No, I sit on the committee.
Oh, right.
And I just, thank you for the years of your spending on having this complete.
Councilmember Hauser?
Yeah.
Mr. DeFranco, thank you very much for the work you and your colleagues do. I think for me, it would be more important, along with what Mayor Pro Tem Salvi had said, to really sharpen the pencil on the amounts.
Absolutely.
I think you're about 25% light. That's just my view.
Yeah.
And I think getting some more accurate numbers would help us then start to plan the step forward. So we can do all these in concert,
Yeah. No, absolutely. And honestly, that's what we intended to do originally.
Sure.
But it takes time to go call contractors and get quotes and so on and so forth. So I frankly, as we were kind of getting the band back together, I'm like, let's just make sure we're on the right path here, But that's clearly what we want to do.
Yeah. Do they need a motion, Mr. City Manager?
If you'd like to take action to support the plan, that would be appropriate.
Councilmember King?
I know there were some other comments on there too, but.
Just one last comment. Yes, I spend a lot of time in the cemetery. So my team and I have put in the garden at the mausoleum, and then
great.
also the Never Forget Memorial Tombstone, plaque. And so I really appreciate what you're doing, and doing the rest of the cemetery is, I'm on board for that.
Great, appreciate it, thanks.
Councilmember King?
So, I may have an unpopular opinion. There's a lot of people who don't believe in burials, and I would myself prefer to be cremated, or there's some new practices of kind of green burial that are more environmentally friendly. I have some concerns about the sustainability of our, our cemetery in the long run. The fact of, rising costs, the limited plots in the future to be able to sell. I'm just curious, do they ever turn over? In 100 years, are people going to go visit these plots that have been there, from their great grandparents or such, or they've moved away, there's no family left in the area, and the cost to the residents of maintaining it. I'm also concerned about the environmental aspects of cemeteries. So a lot of these caskets are made with woods that contain arsenic. There's specialty woods that endanger, I think our rainforests of harvesting them. Minerals or metals that are being put into the ground. And then the actual embalming fluid that's used is formaldehyde based, and we're putting that into our ground. Are we continuing to contaminate our rainwater or our groundwater? So I have real concerns about our cemetery in general. I don't know if we've had any discussion about the long-term viability of this, and this might be very unpopular, and maybe this has been brought up in the past, but I don't know if it's generationally, but that's kind of my viewpoint, and I feel like we need to have more conversations around it. I will say that I think the way it looks now with the fencing is ugly. If it's going to stay, I'd love to see something different done. But I just think that we need to think about the long-term sustainability, the environmental impact, and are there ways that we could do things differently? I know it's very popular, but there are newer practices out there, and people are making changes. And I think we need to start thinking about that versus just kind of the status quo.
No, I think your comments are great, and I can absolutely appreciate the point of view on it. That said, however, to me, and again, we're not really focused on the day-to-day operations of the cemetery, right? So we're just looking at, hey, how can we make it look better? So the challenge you have is the decisions that the issues you're bringing up, and the decisions around them. For lack of a better term, that horse left the barn 130 years ago when they decided to put it in, right? So those plots, the people that own those plots like it's a lot. It's not going anyplace, right? So the cemetery's not going anyplace. That's number one. Number two, as it stands right now, and Nick might just confirm this, it's essentially being maintained as a city park. In other words, there's some revenue that comes in. There's a fund right now that's several $100,000. There's funds that come in from the sale of plots and some charges, you know what I mean? But there's a decent amount of expenditure that goes to just maintaining it. Tree trimming, mowing. Sure. Because if you don't do that, the place will just completely go to pot, and it'll be a massive eyesore, for the city. So I appreciate everything you're saying. I don't recall, I think there might be 600 more flat plots that are still available for sale, and there's the new 70 we're talking about. So we're not talking about 10,000 more. It's a firm premium limit. Those are going to be sold, and those are going to happen kind of no matter what, is my view. And my only thing is I'm just trying to do my best, or our best, to try to make it look the best, given that it occupies, if you look at downtown, such a large portion of downtown, right, that I just would hate to see it, that it just gets neglected. But it's a valid point, but I just think that, we're there. There's not much we can do.
So I'd also talked about the garden plot. We had Pixley here talk about doing a cremation garden plot. And there had been some discussion on that. And I thought it was discussed and then kind of said, no way, that we shouldn't do that.
Yeah, that was maybe talked about a long time ago, because I think we talked about that as being one other thing that we could do, but it wasn't really pursued. The only thing that did end up happening was we did repurpose. Vern came to us about repurposing the receiving vault for Oakland University. So that was done, but that's kind of for a separate thing, and that's where, again, for the folks that have basically donated their bodies to Oakland University for medical research and all that wonderful stuff, that's where the remains ultimately go. And that literally is the inventory for, I think, like thousands of, that's good for like 100 years, but it's a good point. But
Councilmember King, you had a comment?
Yeah.
I have another question. I'm just curious, and maybe you can help educate me, but when a plot is sold in the cemetery, who owns it, and how long do they have the rights to that?
The family owns it.
The person owns it in perpetuity. Yeah, and in fact, we have, for example, one of the things we explored, and we looked at a lot of this, is there are plots and there are spots in the mausoleum that they've been there forever, and we're like, at one point in time, is it 50 years where no one, because sometimes a couple will say buy 2 plots, someone's interned there, and then they move away, and they go to Arizona, and we never see them again, and no one's ever gonna occupy, so we said, can we basically say, if you haven't occupied that spot, it goes back to the city, and we can choose to resell it or whatever, and we had, I think, the legal look into it, and the ultimate thought was, there's really nothing we can do about it, because what if someone shows up, a kid, a grandkid, someone with a piece of paper that says, that's mine, you know, and you just either sold it to somebody else. So, yeah, I think it's in perpetuity unless, it's just like anything else, you own your house unless you sell it, it's kind of yours.
Well, from an environmental standpoint, we're talking about selling more plots. Should we continue to practice? I know we're stuck with what's there, kind of in a way, but should we continue doing that? I think is something that we need to think about. And maybe the community supports it, and I'm kind of in the very small minority, but, you know, you're continuing to put toxic materials, embalming fluid, you know, potential arsenic-filled wood into the ground that'll be there for, you know, hundreds of years, and we're gonna continue selling these plots and continue to do it.
But I do think, and again, without having someone like Vern Pixley or.
We need Vern.
Yeah, need Vern. That's a valid point, again, for the legacy ones. I don't know, all I know is that for my family members who have been interred in recent years, it's like in a cement container. I mean, I don't know how hermetically sealed those things are, where those issues are mitigated and what materials they're being used. So maybe it is an issue, but perhaps less of an issue. I don't know, it's above my pay grade.
Councilmember Jones.
Just 2 things real quick. So it's like a deed, you actually get a deed. You own that land.
All right.
Because I have 2 from great-great-great-grandparents outside of Philadelphia. I have 2 deeds for 2 plots they never used, so it just stays in the family. But in my case, I have my mom, my dad, myself, and my husband have spots there, but it's just they were cremated. It's just a headstone. It's not even a headstone, it's flat on the ground, so there's no body in there. So I think there's also that going on, where there's not anybody, there's no ashes, it's just so that my kids can go and pray or go see their grandparents. I think it's really important to have something, that's just my own private feelings, where you can go, where you can
Right.
track your family and your history and all
And I
of
think,
that.
to Councilmember King, we've had conversations about the financial viability going forward. I don't know that we've ever really had environmental discussions.
I do think, you know, sustainability on a financial basis is a concern,
Right.
right? It's a cost that we're all gonna be burdened with for generations.
Right. Councilmember Trent?
Well, I for one, think that Councilmember King has, on the environmental side, has a good idea. And I think that there are multiple options now, and I think more and more people, as, you know, when younger people are interested, do we have another alternative of what we can do in that part of the cemetery that hasn't been bought or purchased? So I
That's
don't know
even-
if it's a tree or a,
Yeah.
I don't know, what, you know.
That's where perhaps even as we're
It's-
having
it's
more
sort of an
engagement with the community to
expansion.
engage,
Yeah.
educate people, right?
So-
Just say, you know, at the end of the way, you can have a plot, but maybe you don't even have anybody in there, but it's just more or less a commemoration spot, right?
So maybe for tonight, we talk about what they're asking, and then we look at this into the future somehow? 'Cause again, we're not gonna decide it
I'm
tonight.
supportive of making a change to the funds. I'm not supportive of selling more plots without us doing education and research. And I think thinking about the longer term strategy
So-
of
so
the
maybe-
cemetery.
so maybe
But
a
I'm one of 7,
Well,
so.
well, maybe a motion with what they're asking, but at the same time, asking to come back and provide, maybe not you, but, you know, Vern Pickley or somebody to answer some of those questions, to give us some more knowledge.
Certainly can research best practices. I mean, this is not,
Yeah.
it's a totally
Yeah.
legitimate question.
Right. Councilmember Jones?
I think-
Oh, Jason, you had a
Jason,
question?
sorry.
So that's already been done. We don't put any wood logs in the cemetery anymore.
What, caskets?
Correct, they're inside of cement vaults that are sealed, nothing leaves that. And we've also researched the new crematory process where you don't put a cement vault in a glass crematory vault. It's actually a
Right, so,
direct clear, so all that's been done.
so we'll just have that information brought to us, and we'll do. Mayor Pro Tem Salvia?
Yeah, so I guess I would like to make a motion to have the city study and come back to council with ways to either replot or re-garden for cremation reasons, this new section of the cemetery keeping in mind the environmental concerns as well as the need to raise funds to beautify the cemetery.
Motion by the Mayor Pro Tem.
I'll second.
Support by Councilmember Trent. Discussion? Madam Clerk, the roll, please. Mr. Clerk, the roll, please.
Bixson,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
and Trent.
Yes.
We'll come back with a report.
And thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you.
tonight.
You're welcome. Sure.
It's a great report. Thank you. All right, is there any further public comment tonight? I know we have someone from the PCCA. Come on up
Okay, wow.
and just identify yourself for the record.
Hi, my name is Hunter Parsons. I am the Marketing and Engagement Coordinator for Paint Creek Center for the Arts, and I also am the Volunteer Coordinator for the Art in Apples Festival. Thank you for giving me some time tonight to just come in and give a little bit of a word. As you know, the festival is next week, Friday, the 6th of September through Sunday, the 8th. And we are really excited over at Paint Creek. We're just getting ready and getting all of the last loose ends taken care of. We're really stoked because it's the 58th Art in Apples Festival, and also so it's the 58th. And it also is a year that we have the most fine artists that we've ever had before, with 270 fine artists who will be coming to Rochester Municipal Park, and they're coming from 30 different states. We've also are offering more apples this year, since a lot of people have asked us in the past where the apples are. So that's something as well to be looking forward to. But with the anticipated attendance of 60,000 people this year, we are trying to take necessary steps to ensure the safety of all vendors and patrons alike. After last year's festival, we received a lot of helpful and positive feedback about their experience, but one of the areas of concern was the number of dogs that were at the festival. Per the City of Rochester ordinance, there are no dogs permitted in the park throughout the festival. And last week, Paint Creek Center for the Arts met with both the Rochester Police and Fire to discuss some of the ways to reinforce that policy and really maintain the safety of both patrons and their furry friends. So we at Paint Creek are really utilizing mostly our social media well in advance of the festival to really remind people not to bring their pets, especially because with the large crowds, the limited walkway spaces, loud noises, tempting smells, some working dogs, and the large percentage of fine breakable artwork at the festival, we really want to just request that continued support of the city in broadcasting that message that really simply put, your pets are safer at home than on the festival, and they're not permitted at the park. So if possible, we really just want to advocate that our announcement kind of be carried forward a little bit higher, especially on social media or even larger signs posted outside of the park entrances. That would be a great area of support to help. Well, I myself am the volunteer coordinator, and I have a lovely group of different nonprofit organizations welcoming people into the festival this year. They are volunteers, so they don't really have a say in really kind of vetting people coming through. So that is really one of the main focuses that I wanted to draw your attention to today. And thank you. If you have any questions, again, my name is Hunter Parsons, and I can answer any of them.
Thank you. Councilmember King?
I love Arts and Apples. I'm so excited, and so thank you for all of your time and effort that you do and bringing it to our community. I'm super excited to hear more of the focus on apples. I tried to get a pie last year. They were sold out by like day 2. So I'm excited about that, looking forward to it. So.
Awesome, thank you.
Councilmember Jones?
Sure.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
Chris.
sure. Again, I echo, I think this is the highlight of the year for many of us who live in the city, and particularly those of us who live very close to the park. So it's something that we very much enjoy. How, I guess, City Manager Banda, what can we do to assist in this no dog policy? I mean, listen, the people who stand there, take the $5 and give the stickers, they are volunteers, and it's their job to enforce the rules. So does police walk around? I mean, I don't want to be heavy-handed and give people tickets, but at the same time, unless we enforce it, people are going to do whatever they want to do.
So my suggestion would be, if you would give me some Paint Creek Center for the Art wording to get on our website, so we don't say something that you don't want us to say, and I would ask you to invest in some 2x6 signs. We will let you put them up at the entrance that says, no dogs allowed. We'll put the city code on it,
Yeah.
and we can even have the police seal on that, so I can get you the artwork for that.
Yeah,
You can get them right down the street for
Perfect.
cheap, and we'll
Yeah.
put them up wherever there's an entry point.
Okay.
And then we feel much better having our folks say, please take your dog
Yeah,
out once.
yeah.
It's more clear.
Thank you, yeah, we know that we have signs that are posted throughout, and,
We
you
can
know,
get
but
bigger
they're tiny, and also, you know, we also understand with the city of Rochester too, also having like leader dogs for the blind being located here. There are a lot of working dogs. There were some kind of conflicts with some people, pets, last year. And one of our gate groups is actually Positive Changes Therapy dogs. So they also kind of have to witness a lot of different dogs that they themselves can tell they're not therapy dogs coming in.
Yeah. A lot of times when we have a conflict, it will be somebody that isn't going to the festival. It says, I live here, I'm walking through the park with my dog, you can't stop me. But the ordinance says, if we're having an event, you can't bring your dog. So we can softy on that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Councilmember Jones.
I just want to thank you for being here. I asked Hunter to come here because of the concern about dogs, so I'm glad that we got it out there, and hopefully it'll be better this year. And then just also to give a plug that, the reason why I met with them is because Raya is going to do one of the, it's going to be one of the gatekeepers.
Yeah.
And that it is a great fundraiser, so nonprofits out there, it's a great community event. You work
Yeah.
all 3 days, and it's a good thing to look
Thank
into.
you. Yeah, it is. This is the largest fundraiser for Paint Creek Center for the Arts. An estimated 60% of our funding for every year comes from that. The other 40% is supplemented through our art education programming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hunter.
I was just going to say also, the grand opening is
Next Friday.
Friday at 4 o'clock at the
4
band
o'clock,
shell.
yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Hunter.
Thank you.
Any further? Ms. Kane, welcome.
Good evening, Pat Kane, 817 West 4th Street, Rochester. Just a couple of things, kind of tailgating off of what Cheryl said. When we worked and we did the cats, they were not all returned. We did 64. Only 2 of them came back to the area. And as far as colonies go, we don't have colonies as such in a lot of areas, but we've got plenty of them running around. They are on Alice Street. They are in the First Street area. They certainly are on Wesley, Taylor, Castell, 4th area. That's a heavy area. They are also on, oh my gosh, I'm going to forget the area. It's to the west of us, but further up, sort of where Stormy came from. That is a big area. Griggs, also Elizabeth area still has some, Miller area has them, and that certainly is a lot of them. If you look at Rochester Cares and Rochester Community Cares and Next Door Neighbor, and you're tied to all the Facebook sites like I am, currently, every day, 2, 3, or 4 cats are escape artists. There are cats popping up all over that people are feeding, and they take pictures of them in their yard, their patios, their decks, because they showed up for a couple of days and they're trying to figure out what to do, who owns the cat. And the one thing that we are not taking into consideration is cats are allowed to roam in the state of Michigan and in Rochester, as they are in all cities. And what I have found out is some of the cat problems that we have, and it's not their problem so much as it is human problems, the cats came from people that lost their cats or were moving. We had certain examples by us. One, I think the person passed away, and the children lived with them, adults, and the cats kind of got out, not spayed and neutered. There was another incident with cats on down by 1st Street or 2nd Street, moving. Cats got out. 2 were recovered, 1 isn't. Well, are they chipped, licensed, collars? No, no, no. That means kittens. So that is the problem we have. And also tailgating on that, we look at medical and we look at hospitals as being very sterile, nothing comes in, everybody goes out healthy. Beaumont, Corwell, Royal Oak helped fund and start communities, cat colonies, or whatever you want to call them, in their area, in their surrounding neighborhood. And they found a beautiful harmony, a decrease in the cat population, no complaints, and people are happy, including the people that were coming and going out of Beaumont, and a lot of the staff helped, and the staff even has, quote, their favorite cats. So even hospitals recognize when there are problems, and they have to get it controlled, and they have. Multiple of the cities around us do have those controls put in, and it makes a big difference. But there's also the situation where the neighborhood cats are roaming. And what are you gonna do? I get tired of the neighborhood cats on my property, and when I just get tired of them, I actually just tell them to go home. Clap my hands, and go home. This one goes this direction, this one goes this direction, and two go another. And, it doesn't bother me, but I will tell you, the community cats have decimated my fledglings this year. And that was hard. Chickadees that stay all year with me have lost their young. Cardinals, which have been a favorite, and the mourning doves, those are my most favorite, and the blue jays. So a lot of good it did this year, but they're gone. And they're gone because the cats right now are hungry. And last year, I will tell you, in our neighborhood, we lost maybe 7 kittens that were sort of like newborn due to starvation and dehydration. Trapping was not done the way it should have been done, and cats were brought back from Oakland County and dumped in areas where they had no idea where food, shelter, anything was. I've never been a cat person. I'm still not a cat person. I'm a dog person, and I have ended up with that cat we rescued, Butters. And by the way, she got blessed on Saturday when my brother, who's a priest, came down, blessed the house again, but he blessed Butters, so hopefully she's going to be safe. But she's never been outside. And what I hear from neighbors or people is, my cat doesn't want to stay outside. No, you're not playing with your cat enough or exercising enough, so it is a nuisance to you, and they open the doors and let the cat out. And quote, my cat always comes back. Not true. And therein lies a lot of the problems. And I thank you, Christian, for some words that you did say. I heard it loud and clear, and it's probably applicable in many areas when you said, people as residents, but taxpayers, should not have to put up with something on their property that obviously they find annoying. So those are some very important words when it comes to equality with taxation, okay? And I understand that from multiple viewpoints that I may have. But anyway, good luck with it. We do need a good program. I will be an advocate for the program, but we need to do it humanely and right. And I thank Council for taking a serious look at this, and the Chief for his information, because they do need homes. It's not their problems. And any animal should not have to suffer because of neglect and irresponsibility of humans. And I will tell you, with all the wildlife I have handled in all of my years, I have never caught anything from an animal. I have caught strep and other things from little kids and patients, but never anything from an animal. But anyway, good luck with it, and I hope to maybe to be involved, but that's a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Megan, are you up there?
No one is online.
Thank you. Okay, on to approval of the minutes. Consideration of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 24th, 2024, July 8th, 2024, July 22nd, 2024, and August 12th, 2024. Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion to approve the minutes from the June 24th, July 8th, July 22nd, and August 12th regular meetings of the
Motion by Councilmember Sage, support by Councilmember Jones. Madam, Mr. Clerk, the roll.
Dixon,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is approval of the consent agenda. Consideration to approve the Knights of Columbus Tootsie Roll Drive.
Make a motion to approve the Tootsie Roll Drive.
Motion by the Mayor Pro Tem.
Can I just ask one quick question?
Yes.
Have we, I always donate. I think it's great what they do, but I'm concerned about safety. Have we had any issues in the past with people getting hit just with the traffic?
I think we haven't, but I think we bring that up every
Every
year
time,
because
like,
it's an issue.
you know,
right?
close. I know
Yes,
we have a
close,
whole
yeah.
harmless, right? But
Right.
I feel semi-responsible if we allow it and then somebody gets injured.
Councilmember Hauser?
Are they required to wear high-vis outfits or vests or something like that allows?
We meet with them before the police
You
chief
do?
does,
Okay.
so, yeah.
All right.
We haven't had an incident, knock on wood.
And are there hours of operation that they're there?
I think it's.
It might be in the packet, actually.
It
I'm
is.
sorry.
It is.
10 to 5.
10 to 5, okay.
Yes.
All right. So high-vis and 10 to 5,
For
okay.
3 days.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll support.
Second by Councilmember Hauser. Mr. Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Thank you. Next,
Yes.
there are no old business or table items, or public hearing or legislative deliberation. On to reports. Regular business in consideration of a placemaking and public spaces program agreement for a local fiscal recovery fund distribution between Oakland County and the city of Rochester. And I believe that's for the money from the county for the new farmers market. Graham. Christy, welcome.
Hello. Good evening, Council. What you have in front of you is a really big document, but I'll try to boil it down for you. Essentially, this is an interlocal agreement between Oakland County and the city of Rochester. I've already worked with Marcy to have all of the things set up that we need to accept the transfer of the funds. So the way that it would work is that upon signing this, and what we're asking for tonight is authorization for Nick to sign it as the city manager, and then for the city clerk, or in this case, Brian is the deputy city clerk, to sign the agreement. It's an online signature that's requested. Within 45 days of that signature being completed, those two signatures, then they will transfer 75% of the $931,000 to the city to be used specifically for the market project.
Very good. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Yeah.
Yes, sign it. Yeah.
Motion by Councilmember Hauser, support by Councilmember King.
Yes,
Discussion.
but may I ask one question? I know at one point there was talk potentially of eliminating like the parking covers. Are those back in the plans?
So it wasn't us eliminating them, it was planning commission. They weren't allowed.
Yes.
Yes, so planning commission supported it, but we have to go to ZBA, which we're doing on Wednesday night. We tried to make a couple adjustments, thinking that because they were a hard shell, maybe that was something, so we tried to do a soft shell shade cover. Met with the same problem, so we weren't able to do that. So we're actually going to ZBA on two different issues on Wednesday to get those variances. So fingers crossed that that's gonna go well, but they were always in our plan.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvia.
Thank you. I just want to thank you for continuing to go after these dollars. It's a lot of work for administration, for everyone to go after these dollars. You can tell by the size of the packet. I know it's a lot of work, and it'll probably be a lot of work even once we get the dollars to document and all of that. So thank you, thank you. These are COVID dollars that I'm happy to see them coming to Rochester. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Councilmember Hauser.
And just to be clear, and I appreciate it, it was the city planner that had the issue because of the encroachment.
Correct, and but it was against ordinance.
But you guys are
Yes.
going back on Wednesday?
We're going back on Wednesday to see what
Perfect.
we can do. So what we did at Nick's urging is actually asked a planning commission to approve two plans. The
Right.
original plan that we would like to produce that includes those shade structures, and then a secondary plan that removes those, as well as the other issue that we have is currently where the building is. It doesn't comply with the setbacks, and we're encroaching on ourselves because the DDA owns the other piece of property.
Right.
So we think it's fine, but we still have to go to ZBA, and we also have a letter from the adjacent property owner, Brad Mitzelfeld, regarding the shade structures, that he has
Next to
no
the
issues
bank.
with those as well.
Yep,
Yeah, for the
thank you.
bank.
That's perfect, thank you.
Councilmember Trent.
Oh, yes. So since I've been there, one grant and another grant and then another grant, you've done an excellent job at going, this was multiple grants that Christy went for. So she didn't just go for one and done. And so thank you for continuing that. And then pivoting back to the Oakland County, asking them to review the grant that you had approved that had to change, and then back again. And that was really much appreciated.
And we're still waiting on Congressman James's.
Yeah.
Yes, we're
grant.
hoping to hear from
In theory,
that.
we could get something.
Sometime next month, who knows? So we're hoping on that one, and then we're trying to pursue any other grants up until when we break ground, because at that point, a lot of grants, they don't want a project that's already in progress.
they
So
won't. No.
we're hustling best we can for things that are not completed, to see
I
if there
see.
might be some extra money we might be able to pull in.
So is there a second?
I second.
Mr. Clerk, the roll, please.
Bixson,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, and hopefully our next communication will be to invite you all to a groundbreaking, so stay tuned.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next is consideration 2024 water and sewer rate proposal. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Marcy, you're going to come up and talk about this. So we'd love to give everybody free water forever. That would be a great thing to be able to do. But the Finance Committee and the Asset Committee have talked about this for a long time. And I think we've gotten into a pretty good rhythm with our community, understanding that we're not trying to drop a bomb on anybody, east side or west side. I think everybody knows we have two different water systems. We've been trying to flatten that curve out. For years, we had a large fund balance that the emergency sewer that we had to build along the river was $2 million out of our fund balance years ago. And things don't get any cheaper. We have other projects that we continue to reinvest in our water and sewer program. Some things we cannot control. We had a consultant come in and explain again, right from day one, the initial shock of why can't we control our own destiny? It's Great Lakes Water Authority. We partner with Shelby, et cetera, et cetera. So the committee's done a good job of vetting this out. In your packet this weekend was the rates. It's a lot driven by capital programs that are coming from GLEWA. You have a system that goes from Lake Huron to 100 miles away. You know you have to reinvest. And Detroit wasn't that great at that. Great Lakes Water Commission's done a lot better job, but it comes with huge price tags. These aren't $1 million projects. These are $100 million projects that we all partner in. So we'll go over a little bit of how we tried to soften that curve again instead of spiking 40% rate increases. We try to flatten that out on different components, capital versus usage. And it's the neat thing about it, this summer is a good example. If you ask Anthony, he's like, the fund's going dry because nobody's irrigating on the east side because we've had so much rain. So less usage, less money into our pot. Sounds kind of counterintuitive, but if the way we make our money is you use the water, right? So people are conserving, which we want them to do, but it also makes it tougher to do projections for the future. So I think we've done a good job of that. Marcia, if you want to go over the path forward.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. So tonight in your packet, you have the water and sewer rate proposal for 2024. We're proposing an effective date of September 1 for these changes. So the water rates on both the well side and the GLEWA side, the east side of the city, have no changes to their usage component. But for the infrastructure side, there is a change for both of the systems, well and the GLEWA. For the sewer, there's also, it's the same sewer for both sides of the city, so it is a change on both usage and infrastructure. So that is detailed in your packet, but just for the public, I guess it might be kind of helpful to explain this. So like in private industry, when you have a business, you attempt to have a profit that you strive for. In government, we attempt to break even. So we want to have, our cost and our infrastructure needs and capital improvements planned out and our rates to accommodate those. But we aren't building a pot of gold at the end like a private industry would. So this isn't a profit center. This is simply a break-even strategy. And what Nick was saying is 100% true. Our model tries to smooth any changes that we make over time so that the customers, the residents, the businesses don't have spikes year after year, anything dramatic. We try to smooth that out. So what's been presented to you has been analyzed by staff, our consultant team at Raftelis, the infrastructure committee. So all of this has gone through a vetting process, and what we're presenting here is a reflection of that. So for a moderate user, a 30 unit per quarter user, you would see a change in your water bill of about $12 per quarter. So that's less than $51 a year. So that's both well side and the GLEWA side. So we believe that will adequately take us, cover our cost, help us fund the infrastructure requirements which are in our plan over $12 million in infrastructure plan projects over time. So that's what's presented tonight, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to address those.
Councilmember Jones?
I think you answered this before, but I'm just going to circle back around to it. Just that it takes effect so quickly, but explain to that, but that won't be until this quarter ends, so so just explain that for a minute, because like September 1 is next week, and we're discussing this now, so I just explain the timing.
Sure.
Please.
So this is typically the time of year that we present. We typically change rates as an effective date of September 1. So those new rates would have, like, from September 1 through September 30th of whoever gets their bill at the end of September would have 1 month's worth of new rate and 2 months' worth of old rates. So when we bill in arrears, that means that we bill for water and sewer that's been used. So it would just be 1 month, and when you get your September bill, you would have 1 month of usage. Actually, it's probably just around 2 weeks, because we do our read and we do our billing. So you've got a very small portion of the new rate. And then for the next cycle, October cycle, it would have 2 months of new rates, 1 month of old. For the third month, it would have, so on and so forth. So it gradually flows in, but we try to have September 1 as our cutoff, because we're already paying from some of our vendors, the new rates, and we haven't put them into play.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, and part of it's, we don't get the rates from GLEWA. They're on a different fiscal year than us, so it really messes with us that we look like we're always jamming it, but we don't get it until a couple of weeks ago. It's tough.
And do we do any, I mean, it's not a huge increase, obviously, but there will be some residents that will notice the change.
Right.
Do we do any informational to the community as far as the change?
Usually there's an article in the newspaper that usually alerts residents of the changes. We could put it on our website. Sometimes there's an info graphic that we put on social media.
We like
So
that.
we do some
I
outreach.
think that would be good to do. Yeah. Thank you.
Councilmember King.
I have two questions. I know we talked not that long ago about, on the GLEWA side, our agreement with Shelby, and they were asking us for money for the water tower. I'm just curious, do we have an update on where those negotiations stand? And is any of that potential factored into this or not?
It is factored into these rates. We have put our proposal, we're waiting to hear back from Shelby. So we have built those into the rate structure.
Yeah, we countered but put in the worst case scenario if they ask for, because they're not budging on the first counter. So we're not going to give up Anthony's dog on this one. So, but we built them in, assuming it's going to end up where they want it to end up.
Okay.
That was considered an infrastructure.
Okay,
We
good.
talked about, yeah.
And then my other question is, so we're on the well side and talking with neighbors, your appliances, your fixtures, your glass, it all gets destroyed, right? Even with a whole home water softener, it's still getting destroyed over time.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do to improve the quality of our well water or take out the hardness from it in any way? Like, are there things that we as a community can do to help lessen the burden of some of that on those residents?
So I think I can speak for Corey, because Corey kind of told us at the committee, there is a way that we would build, I think it was a $3 million total community softening plant. Nobody does that. It's just almost impossible to maintain it in the facility that we have. So it's more cost effective to build that into the rates. It's cheaper to buy salt, maintain your stuff. It's funny, because I'm on the same system, and I've had zero problems. Maybe it's the way you adjust the hardness, but I never have lost.
No problem.
Yeah, I've never lost an appliance.
Never lost an
I need to
appliance.
talk to you about what you have.
Yeah.
Put the salt
It's a
in.
regular softener.
Everything's destroyed.
And we're
we built our
terrible about
house.
putting
So
salt in it on top of
I
it.
think we have it figured out exactly right, because I literally, in
coming over.
13 years, have never had to
Never
worry
had
about
an
it.
issue.
Our house was built in 19 and everything is just
Yeah, no, I bet you we
destroyed.
can fix it.
Well, I've never had a problem in all the homes. I've had two.
Councilmember Hauser?
Sure,
Three.
this is obviously, it's always tough to raise prices, and it's always hard to push this on to residents, but I can tell people who are watching at the infrastructure meeting, we've discussed this at multiple meetings, and it has come up, and I think it's not necessarily something we want to do, but it's obviously something that we need to do. And I think that the city has done a very good job of trying to minimize the impact and that upward adjustment to the cost. So, again, I would make a motion to accept, and if that's what's necessary here to get this to the next step, is to adopt the price increase effective September 1st. And again, I realize it's never fun to do that, but based on everything that's been discussed, I don't think there's another option.
Motion by Councilmember Hauser, Mayor Pro Tem Sylvia.
Thank you. I'm going to support the motion. And a couple additional comments I want to make regarding this, and thank you for the information that was presented very well. Specifically, the hard dollars that we're planning for within these rates to improve our systems, as well as to comment that every dollar that comes in through your water bill stays in the water fund. It can't be used on anything else. So I think that's really important, that we can't divert these funds to anything else. And we continue to look at ways to reduce the costs or look for other ways. We continue to do that. We keep hitting dead ends, but we keep looking. So.
If I may, for just to that point, when we broadcast these rate adjustments, you know, we talked about putting something in the newspaper, the website. I think it would be very helpful to repeat what Mayor Pro Tem had said about this is an obligation, the dollars stay within this particular program, they're not used anywhere else. And just so everyone understands that this is not something we're taking from Peter and using to pay Paul. It strictly stays within the water department here.
And it's not a cash machine
We don't make
either.
money.
We don't make
It's a
money.
zero
Every dollar
return.
that comes in gets spent on the system for the reliability of
That
that system.
messaging, I think, is incredibly important to deflect some
I
of the
agree.
calls that may
Yeah.
come in.
Right.
Right, and I think also that we try to spread it out
Yeah.
over, so it's not, we're not getting huge hits like we've had in the past. So I think this is also an effective.
On that point, yeah, I think, I'm very proud of staff and the committee's work on, foreseeing and planning out, the needed infrastructure improvements we need in our system 10, 20, 30 years down the road. So I think these rates really reflect, good stewardship of our water system, and that we're proposing these rates to be good stewards of the system and make sure that we're planning for improvements that are needed down the road. So we're not having to hit those high peak proposal asks in the future.
And we can put that in the,
Yeah.
that's exactly. outreach.
No,
Thank you.
it's excellent.
Anything
Thank you.
further? Mr. Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you, Marcy.
Thanks, Marcy.
Thank you.
Next is consideration request to approve the mill and fill on Diversion Street. Mr. Alec.
Yes, Mayor and Council. Proposal for 2-inch mill and fill, road resurfacing on Diversion Street, south of South Street, going towards the city limits, so it's a very small stretch. But this project is utilizing LRIP, or Local Road Improvements Program grant funds through the county. Is the program the county's been offering for, I think, just over a decade now. So it's not guaranteed every year, but it's looking like it's, they've liked the program and they're continuing it. So it has to be used on roads that have an economic benefit, so pretty much around the downtown or main roads through town. So past few years, we've been using it for Letica road resurfacing. And so we finished up the section of Letica, and so we're proposing for the section of Diversion Street. The lowest bid was from Bowen Paving for a total of $26,462, and then we would be reimbursed 50% from the county for that project.
Very good. Councilmember Hauser.
This is maybe more for city manager, Mr. Banda, or even Alec, with these proposed developments that are down in that area, does it make sense to do this particular road and like that the trucks we have discussed are going to be using that road out of town?
We checked with the contractor, and the fact that it's a 2-inch base, we're okay, and we have a surety bond with the contractors. We'll know if anything's damaged because it's a brand-new road, basically. So,
Okay.
So we're confident that it's okay to spend the money here.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a
Motion
motion.
by Councilmember Trent, support by Councilmember Sage. Sure. Mr. Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is consideration request to approve the reconstruction of parking lot 12. Mr. Alec.
Yes, so, looking at our parking lot capital improvement plan, we've received quotes for reconstruction of lot 12, it's, the parking lot behind Give Thanks Bakery off of Walnuts. The lowest bid for this project was also Bowen Paving at $141,296. This includes, new curbs, new pavements, and adjustment to storm, sewer structures as well. That's all for that one.
And I'd just like to say that is in the budget, in the parking fund budget, so we don't have to go to the DDA because it's already in the budget,
Okay, good.
so in the parking budget.
That's my question.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvia?
Thank you. I know this lot needs to be redone, especially the stormwater situation there, so I make a motion to approve Bowen paving for Lot 12, not to exceed $141,296. And we did discuss Bowen at the asset management, and administration has been happy with their work.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
So, motion by Mayor Pro Tem Salvia. Support by Councilmember Sage. Mr. Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
and Trent.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is consideration request to approve exterior repair work on the Dinosaur Hill Nature Preserve Building. Just so happens, right?
Yeah, so on the
Dinosaur
topic
Hill.
of Dinosaur Hill, tonight's meeting, we had budgeted last fiscal year to do some exterior repairs in the building. The project was never completed, and so it's not in this year's budget, but we still like to do this before the 50th anniversary at the end of the summer. The work is a lot of rotted wood around windows and doors, so it'd be repairing any damaged wood and repainting. Copy of that quote is also in the packet. Total estimate was $4,385 from Better Painting. Mark from Better Painting has done quite a few projects with the city, and we've really liked working with him, and he's done a great job.
Mayor, Councilmember Hauser?
So the question I'm going to ask, and I'm sorry for being the new guy here, but if we heard earlier tonight that they've got $800,000 sitting in their checking account.
900.
I'm sorry. In what world is the city paying this? I get it, it's $4,800.
That's the agreement.
No, I get it, I'm just, and I appreciate,
Legal agreement, yeah.
let me just finish. I just would like a clear answer, just so I know when someone asks me, why is the city paying that when they've got $900,000?
So what I already said, so we have in our agreement that it's our building, we have to maintain it. I will say this.
The exterior.
Exterior, it's exterior.
Yes, it's the mechanicals, et cetera.
Okay.
I'll say this, a quick $75,000 to redo parking, the paving, the paths with stone. I would ask that question, why are we doing that when you have $900,000?
Well, 100%.
That we are not obligated to do those paths. They're wonderful. The next phase should be done this year. We're having a conversation with them, like, why don't you pay for that? Because we're taking care of our
So
facilities.
that's what they need to come back and tell us, because this is hard too.
Yeah, I don't think it ought to be a question, why are you? It should be, you are, that's the directive, but that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Trent?
Yes, saying as I started with looking at our contract with them,
Yeah.
the rental,
Yeah.
the agreement that we have for them to, be in the building and what their part is. I read that very thoroughly. It could be up for a review for goals and objectives for sure.
Sure,
But the city maintains exteriors, and then they maintain the interiors, which the interiors need some work. I don't know if you've been there lately. You might want to do a walkthrough. You can, so I did. And so I want to thank you, Alec, because I did do a walkthrough and we had money to replace the door. And then we talked about the windows and gutters, and they did all that. And then we talked about the interior, and that will be a discussion we'll have with the Dinosaur Hill Board. But I'd also like to say, the door, are you gonna have that glass?
Yes.
In there by?
You said it was.
It was a little teeny glass. We saved money, but it's a little teeny glass.
No, we've got the new doors coming, I think it's next week,
And
15th, there you go.
And they were very efficient about it, and with the issue that happened. And I really appreciate that, you working with me as well. And, it'll be looking good for the 50-year anniversary it's changed to October 3rd, but I will get into that when we get through this meeting at the end.
All right, is there a motion? Mayor Pro Tem Salvia?
I have a follow-on question really on us. So this was in last year's budget, and so my question is, how come it didn't roll over? Don't we have an exception report or something that flags these? I know we flag cost reductions, so I could also say some of this on us. We didn't roll it over. So do we have a process to catch those items? So money was used on Dinosaur Hill?
Correct.
Okay. So I guess I could make a motion to approve this, but I would also want an offset in next year's budget. If we spend $33,000 every year on them, I want to offset next year and reduce it. This is really a pull ahead, push back. I just think, you know, we shouldn't be, I know we have to maintain the building, but something also broke in our process.
Councilmember Trent?
My knowledge is that there's $40,000 allocated for Dinosaur Hill every year, and I don't think it's used every year.
I don't think it is either.
Is that what you're talking about?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
well,
Christie can answer that.
okay.
there's no way we put 40,000 in the
So
building.
there's
There is no, you're right, yes. Right.
So there's the 28,000 that's paid in $7,000 increments every quarter.
That goes directly to their accounting department,
Correct.
yes.
And then we also include maintenance, a maintenance line. It has alarm systems, it has some different security. And so there is not normally 40,000, it's more in the neighborhood of 30-ish.
Okay.
So 34,000. We did dump in an extra at council's approval for the 25,000 for trail rehabilitation. But I'm all for you going after that fund balance and seeing if they might be able to pony up some dollars for that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
We have in our budget 25,000 for the trails.
correct.
So maybe we pull this from the 25,000 for the trails.
That's exactly my math.
Okay,
Okay,
that's my motion.
okay. I will, I'll second it.
Oh, go ahead, Marilyn,
Support
please.
by Councilmember Trent. Mr. Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you, Alec. I think we all agree that, and I think we communicated that to the Dinosaur Hill, that they need to explain what's going on with that money, what the plan is, what's the future. We also have a receipt of the check register, if there's any questions on that. If not, we receive a report from the various boards and commission. First is from the City Beautiful Commission. Councilmember Jones?
Actually, not councilmember, the city manager.
Yes, thank you. So I did go to that one this time. So, we met last week and just talked about, try to be nice about this, but that's a committee, they're very dedicated to what they do, but they're also in search of meeting opportunities. So we have extended staff that goes there, so we told them it's okay if they go quarterly, if they don't have any reason to meet, and they agreed with that. But we just went over the rest of the year, how to spend the rest of their money. The exciting news is the murals have been delivered that go on the back of the recently renovated Kiwanis shelter. We've had, I don't know how many, Marcy, how many people have come in and said, wow, you have like a nice kitchen in there now. It's really nice up there. All the cement's safe now. It's
Nice.
ADA compliant, painted. The 4 murals that go up, we're going to do a ribbon cutting for those, I think at.
3 o'clock.
Thank you, 3 o'clock next Friday before the 4 o'clock so we can get you all there at one time. Oh, do we change that? I'm sorry. Oh, no, that's the All Abilities Park. It's going to be at 3:30 the same day as the Art and Apples opening. But 4 o'clock this Thursday, we're going to unveil the 4 panels at the Kiwanis shelter. So the meeting was pretty much about that and just going over, wrapping up their asks, and they're going to look to what projects they would like to include for next year's asks. So that was about it.
Okay, thank you.
Just from the mayor's office.
On to report of the Cemetery Advisory Board. Councilmember Jones, I think we probably had a pretty thorough report on the cemetery.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I will defer to the earlier report.
Okay, thank you. Next is a report from the Sister City Committee.
I'm going to do that.
She's gonna do
even
that.
though
Jones?
Marilyn and I and
We're kind of
Steve is
tag
not there,
teaming
but
on
we-
this one, yes.
So we are, at every Sister City Committee meeting, we are tackling a topic. And this was about grant writing. So there was representative from a lobbying group that was there that spent most of the meeting talking about how we can get grants, how they go about getting grants. He represents Rochester Hills. So I think he took credit for all the money they just got for brownfields. That was he who pursued that. So there is, which we don't have, but they do have at Rochester Hills, they have actually a department that's involved in the grant writing. And it probably pays for itself, frankly. Maria Willett started out, she's the chief of staff, of course, for the mayor's office, and she spent a little spent some time on background information about what Rochester Hills does in their process of getting grants, and they are highly successful. I think there's a huge opportunity for Rochester as far as going after grants. He did mention a few that we would maybe want to consider. They even talked about, you know, what about a graduate assistant? Maybe being here to, as she has to work at college, or he could maybe become a grant writer for us. So just things for us to think about.
So I want to jump in. This is one of the things that pushes my button. We probably get as much money as they get. I'll take away the brownfields.
Dollar for dollar.
Dollar for dollar. We have Linda Davis Kirksey that I just signed a contract for $5,000, I think, or less than that, what we pay her per year. We have got millions of dollars in grants in the last year alone. They hire a full-time person basically to do that. We do it. Chief writes his own. Chief George writes his own. We write our own. We get, Christie wrote her own. Grant at Anthony and Marcy. And we talk about it. We say it just doesn't seem the same when you have a point person doing it. But we literally have got millions of dollars in the last couple of years across every spectrum. We know where every grant dollar is. Anthony is all over it. Marcy's all over it. Asil Putros is all over it. DLZ, Laura is all over it. So we bring in grants that we don't splash it, but we still talk about when we get a grant. The All Abilities Park, that was 1.2 million.
Oh, that's true.
And
That's
then-
true, but it was
okay,
70.
so you know.
Small but mighty. We're small but mighty.
That completes my report.
You're welcome.
No disrespect, no disrespect.
No, I understand what you're saying, 100%. I'm glad you said that. That's good to have out there. Yeah.
And a lobbying firm. They have a lobbying firm.
Right. So you're right, dollar for dollar. You're absolutely right. My report is complete.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not completely apples to oranges.
It's
Our
right.
cities too,
No.
right?
I'm
We have
just saying,
different
we
issues.
learned a lot.
No,
Yes, we did. We took good notes.
Good. All right, next is a report from the Asset Management Committee. Mayor Pro Tem Salvi or
I
Councilmember
think
Howard kind of
we've
talked
covered
about it.
everything.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Next is a report from the Pink Creek Trailway Commission. Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I had reported back a couple months ago that we had begun our master plan process, and one of the first steps in that process is to survey the community, right, to get input as we build our master plan for the next 5 years. That survey link will go active at the end of August, on the 31st. So I will make sure to get the survey link to city administration so we can put it on our website, and I'll also then forward it to every council member so you can provide input on the trail. The Labor Day Bridge Walk is this coming weekend on the 2nd.
That's right. Walk and run. You can run.
I have a question on the trail when you have a moment.
Okay. The Solaronics project. So on June 24th, we did the final approvals with regards to zoning, et cetera. So that in turn triggered the 90-day clause in the license agreement that Solaronics has with the trail. So we do not think that they will be able to satisfy the conditions of that agreement in the 90 days. And we've made notice to them, as we should, but maybe, Nick, you can help us.
Yeah.
Has the sale closed on the property?
I believe it was either last week. I'm pretty sure it was last Thursday. So it was a hang up on the zoning. It had to get published in the paper, and they fiscally responsibly weren't going to close until they knew they had every doc, which they had. So I believe it was last Thursday that was closed. And then they've already submitted engineering, and they're ready to go. So the patients of the 90 days, they have committed to do everything that they said. So they now will take control of that property and get going here. So
I think it would be helpful if you're speaking with them to notify the trail.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because we've formally sent them a letter from our attorney, and I think it would be
Okay.
appropriate.
Absolutely.
Councilmember, I'm sorry.
And then finally, we have a long waiting list for memorial benches, et cetera. We just don't have the space on the trail. So there's a proposal out there now, similar to what we do at the Rochester Rotary Club, the pavers there in that little gateway park. So I think each municipality is going to designate a spot on their portion of the trail, and we'll recreate something similar to the Rotary Park, where the community can recognize memoriam on the trail.
Nice.
Cool.
And then lastly, the estate of Richard Cruise Camp awarded the Friends of the Paint Creek Trail $65,000 this past week. So that should help the Friends group for well over 10 years on the projects that they maintain.
Nice.
And possibly some new ones. So
Oh,
That's
excellent.
great.
Very nice. Councilmember King, you had a question?
Yeah, just as it pertains to the trail, I was curious, do you know whose responsibility it is? I think there's only one, there's one physical restroom as you get out towards Lake Orion, but there's the outhouse at Tinkin and Rochester. Do you know whose responsibility it is for maintaining that?
Yeah, because they're not doing a very good job of maintaining it. How's that? Is that a nice way of saying that?
Tinkin and Rochester,
They
Yeah,
just-
the
in that
parking lot there.
Right by that
There.
parking lot, they now have a.
that would be the city of
I was-
Rochester
Would be
Hills.
I was
City of
gonna say
Rochester
it was
Hills?
City Rochester
Okay.
Hills, probably.
Sister City.
Maybe just maybe a
Grant money there.
Put that on your
the
yeah,
Friends of the Trail would be addressing bathroom options along the trail. As an avid runner, talking with runners, having access to a restroom is really
And the one up by, almost all the way to the
not
end,
the river. By Lake Orion,
by Lake Orion is really bad.
Yes.
yeah.
Off of Clarkson Road there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That came up. They're from.
You
they're
can't
from-
run by it without like gagging.
Well, you need
Oh
to,
my
It's
it's a lesson in holding your breath
horrendous.
while you're exercising.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
Watching your
It's that
I
bad.
guess
Yeah.
I don't get that far. I don't get that far.
Yeah, it's,
I will.
and it's not the first time they've had a problem with that, I would say.
I will reach out to Rochester Hills as well.
So, Mr. Sage, you have your work cut out. Councilmember Jones?
I just have a curious question, and this, I don't want this to go back towards the approval and the zoning and the planning commission, but where Solaronics is, because I walk that almost every day, there's just wonderful trees right there on the, are they remaining?
Yes.
To cover up
Yes.
the look of those
Yes.
buildings?
Yes.
So they're all
And
staying?
more.
Because there really is a lot there that could really make a difference on site there. Okay.
Isn't that
awesome.
part of Paint Creek Trail?
That is.
I figured it
15
was,
feet
but
in.
I was
Yeah.
worried
50.
how far it went.
50, yeah.
50 from
50.
the center of the trail.
Okay, all right, perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is a report from the DDA, Councilmember Trent.
Yes, so it was August 21st, last Wednesday. John Bry, Oakland County Main Street Program Coordinator, came to present the annual Main Street Accreditation Award to the Rochester DDA, and Rochester is the only DDA to be accredited 20 times. And it was one of 12 this year. The Graham update, AKA Architects presented the preliminary budget. They will request 3 bids from chosen general contractors. We already talked about the placemaking grant that they got, so I don't have to go into that. Site Development did its annual walkthrough of the town, and it assessed that it looked great. I don't know. You know, they've had garbage and debris problems, and it's reported that it's all under control. And you were there, Mayor Bixon. You heard it. So if anybody complains, it looks great.
So I have a question on that. So that was a walkthrough regarding sites that are under construction?
Oh,
or
no, it's
existing
a site
properties?
development does a walk through downtown. They assess, what does the downtown, what do the garbage areas look like? They're in the alleys, they just do
What needs to be
aesthetics
fixed.
assessment.
Okay, so this is not the walkthrough looking at the buildings for blight?
No, this is not that, no. So a lot of it was garbage, they've had a lot of garbage, but they were pleased to say it was being picked
They
up more.
did say the city looks beautiful.
Yeah, they said the city looked beautiful. So Moshery Elevator Properties, financial housekeeping situation was discussed. And because there were two sections were divided based on a DDA tax assessment, one in 1983 and one in 1995. The DDA board voted to combine the properties under the 1995 assessment for multiple reasons, including the issue of required setbacks from property issues.
Now, did we need to
Did I
vote on
get
that or
that right?
something tonight?
Or-
Mr. City Attorney?
So that meeting was really informational to them. It will be coming to city council at its next meeting. I think we've got it figured out that we might not even need to amend the development plan. We may just be able to do it by resolution. So you will have that at your next meeting for approval. There was a motion to support this ask, because it's kind of an administrative, but it came with some financial issues, which we'll talk about at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Christmas is coming. The goose is getting fat. The Holiday Expo is on November 11th, 5 to 7:30 p.m. at the Royal Park, and it's a great way to shop locally in one place, plus the myriad other events are coming as well. They're all coming back, all of them, I think, except maybe one. But that's to PSD to report on that when that happens. Nominations for the Bill LaPuma Community Spirit Award are still open, due by August 30th. Magical Mural Tour kicks off on September 2nd. And last but not least, Main Street, Oakland County is funding the DDA staff research tour to go. They're doing the staff is doing a research tour in Texas from September 13 to 17. The trip will include visits to farmers markets, indoor markets, community gathering spaces, art installations, and more in San Antonio, Waco, Austin, and Dallas. Yeah, that's
They're
it.
getting around.
They're getting around. Get their cowboy boots and their Tony
and
Llamas
stuff.
ready.
Tony Llamas?
All three. All three will be going. The Christy Trevorrow and Taylor and Jenna. All paid for by Oakland County. Yeah.
All good.
No money leaving Rochester.
All good? Okay, next is a report from RARA. Councilmember King.
Yep. We had great registrations for summer camp this year, and on a year-to-date basis, they're about 20,000 ahead in revenue, with 875 more participants to date. The summer camp registrations were really strong. There's a lot of new programming. They've also created a new tool that's just being used kind of internally to evaluate all new programming. So it kind of they use reviews from, participants, and they have a scoring of different factors to determine whether or not it qualifies to continue on for additional programming. So I think they're being really thoughtful about the programming that they're doing and when they're trying, new things. For the entryway, I believe Aram Roofing should be coming to the Planning Commission here shortly, or they may have just done so. Not yet? Okay. So they'll be coming to the Planning Commission for the construction of the roof overhang at the new main entrance, which is in the parking lot, not the main entrance off of the street. The hammock park, they have a soft opening, so the hammocks are up. But they're gonna do some sort of grand opening. They're also kind of planning for the future of doing some sort of mural they'd probably, I think, come to planning or the city for that. But they would do some sort of mural on the back of that building there. There are shade structures. I think maybe one is still missing. And then they're looking at also investing in some things like those concrete bag setup that we have at the park, potentially a concrete chess table, or other toys. And the items would be available at the front desk for residents to check out. So they may turn in their license or a credit card or something just as a hold to make sure that the pieces come back. So we were talking about that. But it should be, I think, a great area right off the trail there to kind of stop and relax and just enjoy, or, for parents that might have other children that they're kind of entertaining while their kids are at sports, it's a great, I think, resource to have there. So, and there are bike racks
All
too.
right, there we go.
Bike racks.
Yes, bike racks. That's how it all
Quick
started.
question, I think I saw there's gonna put some signage up, because some people online were asking who can use this.
Yes.
So, but there's gonna be signage?
I believe so, but let me
Okay.
I think there's an informational board David's gonna do, yeah.
Is there? Okay. Because because I don't remember us talking about like signage needing to get approved, but I'm sure they would have something there. And then the budget presentation, they'll be coming to the city sometime in September. They go to the city of Rochester, or City of Rochester Hills first on August 19th. So they just went. So they should be getting on the schedule sometime in September. We are moving our regular meetings, starting in, I think, September, to the third, I think, Tuesday instead of Wednesdays. So it really shouldn't impact, I think, the schedule, but there should be a new date. And then lastly, I was just gonna share some information about kind of year-to-date. So the number of activities in 2024 through August, was 280 different activities. The prior year in 23, they had 324. That was a lot of reevaluation of what is really working and kind of narrowing down and being more thoughtful about it, and that's where I think this tool has been very helpful. But the participants went from 6,337 in 23 to 7,212. And then revenue was, I think, 20,000 up through July. And then one of the other things, if there are still people that are listening, they are offering school-age camps throughout the school year on all of the days that are random days off of school.
That's great.
Which I think is fantastic. I'm already signed up for a couple of those dates. So it's like September 27th, October 14th, there's 2 in November, the 4th and 5th, voting day. And then over the winter break as well. So I think it's awesome. Great resource to the community. I know a lot of families have always scrambled of like what to do with their kids during those days. So tell your neighbors that it's available.
Nice. Very good, thank you. Next report from the Historical Commission, Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Bear. So we received a presentation from the Stony Creek chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. And I guess the first question I need to ask City Manager, are they scheduled to come present to us on the 9th?
They haven't asked yet,
Okay.
I don't think.
The only people we have now are the Water Commissioner.
Oh, they were supposed to have been scheduled. I
Right. So
put the request out.
in this presentation is a kind of three-part. They're obviously focused on America 250, which is in July 4th, 2026. And they have 3 proposals for us, which include Adopt a Gravestone Project, the Patriot Grave Rededication Marking Ceremony, and that would be for the 4 American Revolution soldiers buried in Mount Avon, and then an opportunity with a program nationwide for America 250 markers, commemorative markers. So they need direction from multiple parts of the city, obviously the cemetery board, the historical commission, and city council. So they would like to schedule some time. What is the pleasure
If
of
we can get them on the
administration?
9th, I'll go from here. There's a 9th
As
or
of
6th.
now, the 9th is if they can
9th
make it.
would be good?
September, yeah.
Okay, I'll pass that along. Great. That's it.
All right, very good. Is there any further public comment? Megan, doesn't look like it.
No one.
Okay, thank you. On to general miscellaneous, Mr. City Manager.
Just a couple things, update on the trail, the Clinton River Trail. We got through, we kind of got through Eagle. The roadblocks that we're getting thrown at, we just want to replace the trail. Not that we have the money to do it right now, but we're trying to simplify this. It's just build back the earthen berm, don't do anything overly fancy. And the seals all over this thing. So we're trying to look for not only funding sources, but just to get the approval of how we're going to handle this. They want studies done of water levels and all these different things. So it's not going to be soon, and it's not on us. Even if we had the dollars, it's not going to be soon. So we continue to let people know. Thank God, the public's been very understanding, like no complaints, which I think is outstanding. So we're trying to be fiscally responsible. We don't have $4 million to write a check if that's what it was. So we're working on a bunch of different fronts. So just update on that. Good news on the Berry Global. I think I told you guys before, the breach of the Clinton River. We finally, last Thursday, got clearance from New Jersey to go ahead and start permitting the project with fisheries. This is Fed money, like $3 million. that we're gonna, we don't have to pay a dime. And Barry Global's gonna let them on the property to start fixing this, hopefully this fall. So that was a huge thing we've all been working on together. And then this is just a recognition of really three people. So Chief George couldn't be here tonight, but we've had some tragedies, some things that you wouldn't want to read in the newspaper happen in our own town. Some mental problems with folks, very personal things that it can get out on social media. And Chief George, Chief John, and LT, so there was a tragedy almost averted with him and his sons actually pulled some kayakers out of the river. Yeah. And he was very reluctant to go on TV. He called me and it's like, it's not about you, Keith. It's not about me. We just happen to be there and help out. But you're representing the city, and I'm proud of how they handle themselves. You saw this whole thing at the Goldfish Swim Club and this doctor from Rochester Hills. That could have got really ugly, and if we didn't get ahead of it, we got ahead of it. Chief George is calling me instantaneously, like, I've got this. We're open books, but just how his demeanor of handling it, just like how Chief Steve was. Keep it calm. Don't let anybody overreact. Chief John does the same thing. When the tanks blew up on Main Street, that could have been a colossal, what are you guys doing wrong here? So just recognize the fact that when those guys are out in front of something, they're doing a great job. No different than Mayor Barnett got stuck in front of those cameras for days with Sheriff Bouchard, who was amazing. And our team's doing the exact same thing. So if you don't read about it in the paper, that's good. Things happen, but we're trying to handle them quietly. And of course, you would all know if it's something that potentially you would be involved in. But things happen, and we've had some pretty bizarre things happen this summer. And everybody's kept a pretty good lid on it because it was nobody's business. But social media makes it difficult to figure out what is everybody's business at some point. So I just wanted to say that. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, stuff does happen.
Can
Councilmember
I ask
King.
one question? Just as you were talking about the trail, so if the thought is to build it back up, are we gonna do something that would help? I would assume there's some way to help
Yep.
prevent this from happening in
So
the
the
future.
concept is build the earth and burn back with clay, and then this is what they're arguing about, how much water should be held. Historically, they went back through everything they could find historically. Visually, it said it was 3 feet of water. As we built the subs to the north, it ended up being 8 to 10 feet of water. No breaches, no problems. They don't like that much water in there, so we have to figure out how to regulate that. So it's put relief pipes at a certain elevation on that path. Now we have to get downstream approval, because that's got to make its way to the Clinton House. So now we have that whole watershed to deal with. So they never got there before, now it will. So yes, so the idea is all along there pop in some relief so that it doesn't happen.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, and just thank you for filling in during the city clerk's absence. We appreciate your help on that. Anything tonight?
Yeah, of course.
Anything tonight?
I'd just like to remind everyone to visit our elections webpage on the city website for all of your resources regarding requesting an online absentee ballot, viewing the sample ballot when we get those end of September or so. So there's a lot of resources on the website for anyone interested.
Very good, thank you. Mr. City Attorney?
Nothing, thank you.
Councilmember King?
Nothing further.
Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Salvia?
Just wanted to comment on the Clinton River detour trail signs. Those are nice, they're up there, and it seems like people are using them, so.
Thank the county, they helped
Yeah,
us.
thought the county did it.
Very good, thank you. Councilmember Sage?
Nothing this evening.
Councilmember Jones?
The only thing, I was gonna talk about Arts and Apples, but I don't need to, so, the second thing is the Lions Park. I was up north last week and Frank sent me a text and said, I have a surprise for you, so he invited me down on Friday, and they have the structure up. It looks awesome. It will be stained, it will not remain that natural color. I wanted you to check, I was a little nervous, they cut back the brush.
Yeah, so I went down there today and I met with Jason actually, and we're going to, so they did good. They left all the roots in the ground. That's why you see some
Yeah.
to stabilize. So now we're gonna probably plant topsoil. Jason went out there also and put
Perfect.
like vinca or something that'll hold on, a ground cover,
Yeah.
just to stabilize. That'll stay green and low, but it's
Perfect.
gotta stay stable. So that's the
Okay,
next
yeah,
thing.
because that was one of the things, and then he also mentioned, so I'll just say this here too, the graffiti on the bridge is pretty horrible.
Yep, so they
And
painted
so-
the first coat, and again, we haven't never painted that one before, but now that you can see it, we're going to, so it's pretty bad, but,
That's what he
yeah, we
said.
use that gray paint, and we've gotta make, because it's over the river, we have to be cognizant of the materials. Jason reminded me of what we use there and get clearance, but we'll take care of that also.
Well, and what I'm hoping for is because it's so visible now.
Now, I
The kids
agree.
can't hide down there quite
would
as
hope
much as they did. And then his other sort of comment, which I told you and you probably looked at, is that there were two very large signs. His vision is from Main Street, you could see all the way down to the gathering area, that could we move those? I'm sure you talked to him about maybe moving those signs a little off so they're not in the middle of the path. He still had to do the electrical, which was gonna be done, but the Mills is very excited about doing events there, like, so it's.
Oh, good.
And he did, I think, get some donors, I think it ran at around $50,000, but truly that was
Really nice. The
Frank
Amish
Rewald
built
and
it.
Sons funding.
The
to
Amish
do
built
it.
it in 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and, the only other thing that, sorry, I wanted to say is that we are gonna book it as we do the city park for any events, anybody who wants to use it. It's not, even though he sent me a picture, there was a guy sitting there playing his guitar, it's like, he did not book that. He should not be there. So people will probably use it without the process,
I
but I
think
think
that
we
that's
need to
what
put a
it's
sign
for.
up by that area, the shelter, and just say to book and the phone number, so that,
Just like the Kiwanis, we'll do it the same way.
the exact same way. Perfect,
So-
yeah. Thank you.
People aren't allowed to sit there and play their guitar?
I guess they could single
They
guy
are,
could play his
but-
guitar.
Is there a street
He could play his
Yeah.
guitar.
If you have an event, you need to.
It's
I
if
would
it's
be
a large,
clarified.
I
I
was
mean-
kind of joking.
Okay, I wanted to make sure you were joking.
Because he sent me a picture of a guy and he said it's already being used.
I might,
But if it's an event, if you're hosting anything there, if you're, just like the city park.
yeah, I mean, I might want to go down there and
Play
play
your
my
guitar.
guitar and,
Play
you
your
know,
guitar.
get my
Yeah.
old guitar out.
Good. Go for it.
Well, that's exciting.
It is
I'm very
exciting.
excited.
Councilmember Trent?
Okay, well, the 50-year anniversary committee, I just wanted to give them a plug and thank Mayor Pro Tem Nancy Salvia and Councilwoman Deb Jones as being part of our committee. And the new date has changed. It is now Thursday, October 3rd, 5:30 to 7:30, because the Community Foundation is having a tailgate party, and a lot of people might want to come to our event. However, there's only 50 slots. I'm just saying right now, there's only 50, and I'm just going to hand out this list of names of the shoulders that we are standing on for that wonderful location and the nonprofit itself that came 10 years later. And just if anybody knows these people, maybe not. I know a few. I know that one of them was my neighbor when I first turned up, moved here in 1990, was Tom Worth. And I live next door to Hank and his wife Helen. So anyway, I'd just like to say his name is on there. Some of them have passed, but he was our mayor for many years. And he was one of the ones that also helped found, or the DDA, and Roger Knapp is not on there, and I'll have to see if he wasn't part of it. So the other thing is, I'm going to be meeting with the committee soon, but we may have sponsorship opportunities, and we will let everyone know. But I have to get a report approved by the board committee. Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Hauser?
Sure, real quick, just two items. One is, and I don't know if this gets discussed a whole lot, but the Freege, which is over here. I've been in the park a couple times recently, and I've noticed people have gone up, and they've opened the door, and they've kind of looked, and there's not been much in there, if anything, and they've kind of had to go back to their car and drive away, and it's kind of heartbreaking, to be honest with you. Hang on one second. And I would just maybe try and get it out there to the extent that if there's something that you have in your pantry that you're not using, or if you go grocery shopping and want to get a couple extra things and put in there, I would highly encourage you. I know it's easy to overlook and it's easy to forget, and out of sight, out of mind, but I guess I'm going to use this as my platform to remind the residents that that's out there and it's absolutely used. The second component is, and I don't know all the rules and procedures if this is even possible or not, but we've got so many wonderful restaurants and bakeries and stores in town, and to the extent that they're not able to use everything or sell anything, or something that it might be a little bit more shelf-friendly, just let them know that, hey, if you have stuff that's left over or not being used, there's space in that pantry and in that fridge that's available, okay? Again, I don't know. Yes, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it is taken over by a lot of the nonprofits, and they're responsible for weeks Raya being one.
Okay.
We have X amount of dollars, and we go shop at
Yeah.
Meijer, and we load it up.
Oh, that's great.
I think what happens in the summer, because I just got an email saying, this week is not covered, no one's grabbing it. So I think that might be a little bit of why it might be emptier.
Sure, yeah.
But it, like, I think every PTA has a week, and, so I do think that there's
Oh, that's
some
great.
nonprofits
That
doing
really
it.
is.
But there's also individuals, because I've seen people pull up in their car with, so you can always have more.
No, I just,
So-
it struck me a couple days ago, I was walking by and I saw someone go up there and they kind of looked and there was nothing in there. And it
Right.
was very, very heartbreaking to see that happen. So I would just put that out there as a opportunity for me to say something about that. And number two, should come as no surprise to anyone. Last meeting, I had handed out some blight ordinances, and I'm just wondering if there's any traction on the part of city council to formally move that issue a little bit forward to try and get some traction on it. I continue to get calls. I've got someone I'm gonna meet with on Griggs next week, and again, I would just want to see if there's any support that we could do to enhance and make this a little bit more robust and see if there's some modifications to our existing blight ordinances. I've given a couple samples to Mr. Jeff Kratt, the city attorney. Again, I'm going to keep bringing it up every meeting, so that's.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd like the city attorney to come up and give us some ideas if you could.
Sure. Thank you. Sure.
I mean, do you need anything more?
No, in fact, you'll see something shortly. The first one because there's really two things that was ground feeding
Yeah.
and blight. So I decided to go after the ground feeding first, which may not, ground, like not feeding animals on the ground.
But not community cats.
Well, now, so now the work may be, the subcommittee may need to look at that to see if it's applicable to, what the plan might be. But yeah, so as soon as the ground feeding is done, then I'm gonna hit the blight, so.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you to my colleagues. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you for championing that,
No, that's
Pat.
it.
We appreciate it.
That's all I've got. Thank
Okay.
you.
I just have two quick ones, is one, as city manager said, 4 o'clock at the Kiwanis on Thursday for the murals. We're going to have some kind of opening. And then next Friday at 3 o'clock, the new All Abilities, thank you, park at 3, and then 4 o'clock at the band shell for Art and Apples.
That's right.
And then I just need to bring we have that debt meeting to talk about it on the September 19th. I think Councilmember Sage said he cannot attend.
I will not be there.
And now, unfortunately, I am not able to attend. So, again, I don't know if we want to change it. I mean, if.
Yeah, I
with
think that would
not
be
have.
I think we might need to, yeah.
So I apologize for that at the last minute, but I
Okay.
thought if two of us are not going to be there, Mr. City
Yeah.
Manager, do
We'll-
you
we'll
want to
get you
send
another date,
something
yes, sir.
out?
Yep.
Okay, so I apologize up front for that, but
Marcia, you got that?
I cannot make.
And we
that
can't
meeting.
do it before a council meeting?
Well, I mean, I
Doesn't
think,
work.
I think we wanted to have a session, and I think again,
Oh,
Councilman
a
Sage
little
can't
bit
get here
longer.
till 6. It's
Yeah,
hard
that
to,
45 minutes isn't getting.
Yeah, not
Yes.
enough. Okay.
so
We'll
we'll get
reschedule.
something out,
Yes, sir.
and
But we have the 14th on a Saturday, the tabletop exercise, right?
Correct.
correct.
Yeah.
That's on the 14th at 9.
What is that one?
9 to 12 on
It's a
Saturday,
disaster,
14.
What is, I apologize.
Emergency
It's not
response.
It's merged
emergency
with the fire
response
department.
thing where we learn what we're supposed
What
to
our
do as
rules,
a
everybody's
council.
rules are.
So are you suggesting maybe we swap the emergency response for the budget discussion?
No, it was only
Okay.
for my own
Okay.
edification, yeah.
I
No, no.
not going to make the emergency response on the 14th.
Is everybody coming to that on the 14th?
I am going to be at the farmer's
planning it.
market. Yeah,
Planning on it.
I'm on the 14th and 21st. at the
We'll be
farmer's
over by kickoff of the
Yes, sir.
game.
How long do we plan that?
9 to 12.
True. It's game day.
What,
Mr.
9 to 9:15.
Make the emergency
Mr.
short.
Fire Chief,
what's the time?
is it 9 to 12? It's going to be that long?
Shoot, I'm at the
Can we do
market from
7?
8 to 1.
It might get done sooner?
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
We'll hold you to that.
I won't make it, sorry.
Or-
I'm going to be selling native plants
Is,
all day. at farmer's market.
Councilmember Hauser said, is there any appetite for starting earlier?
I would start it earlier, but it's up to Councilperson Jones.
Why is it up to me?
I'm just,
Could,
I will come whatever time it starts.
could they move it earlier?
Doesn't matter.
8:30?
8?
8?
And fine,
How
we're
about
up,
8?
we're up early.
Mr. Mayor, whatever you want, I'll make that.
Anybody?
I'm fine with earlier.
I'm good.
8's good.
I'm good. Can I come in my pajamas?
Yes.
I'll be there. My kids
All
are
right,
up
8
anyways.
o'clock.
Right.
8 o'clock, and we
That's what I
will,
love on a Saturday. Come to the fire department.
I was just gonna say, can you send out an
Thank you, Chief.
updated,
I'm
please?
training for.
because you have to, you have a vendor, right, coming in?
What do you want to do about the 19th of these?
Gets paid, you'll do what we tell you.
There you go.
I like that. I like it.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
I'll do laps around.
They checked.